Welcome, everybody!
Hey guys, welcome back.
Well, I'm back with another Power Trip Powercast!
What are you doing?
Why do you do that?
I don't know what the voice is
All
supposed to
the
be,
time.
actually.
It's like something from The Office.
I was trying
Michael Scott. That's exactly what it is. Welcome back to the Power Trip.
Well, it was gonna be...
We're gonna have a good time there, you see?
No, it
An
was...
old prospector?
You just keep listening on to us and we're gonna give you a real good time.
Oh, yeah, we panning for gold!
Oh, yeah.
Tune?
Well, it was gonna start as like British, and then it morphed into like really bad
Because you
Western, and then bad.
Because you can't do accents, you can't do voices. They all go to the same thing.
Sean Connery or Macho Man?
Exactly. If you start with any voice, it goes into Sean Connery.
It was really bad.
And then it stops because it's like we can actually, if you could play out,
It's a progression.
if you could play out the progression. It's like you can watch where he's so into it, starting to kind of fade away. And
Second guessing.
and then I'm just done. And then I'm just gonna go right in it.
A straight fall off.
Like this one time we were really talking like that, and then I realized that it really wasn't as cool, and then it just kind of just goes
Just
on to
kinda
this.
Because we're both just shaking our head at him. At that
Exactly.
point.
And
It's like,
as long
no.
as we can shame you into stopping, we will continue to
I
do so.
can't help. I'm the only one in this trio with personality. All right. For fuck's sake. Sick. Sick rebuttal. All right, guys. Welcome back to the Power Trip Gaming Powercast.
Yes, guys, welcome back.
How are you guys? Ignore that cough.
Doing good. Not as high energy as you are.
First of all,
I'm doing well.
Thank you.
I'm doing well.
Superman does good.
Yes.
You do well.
Do well.
Get it right, motherfucker.
Your semantical games, they always impress me.
All right. So the first thing, I have to bring this up because I saw it.
What am I, chopped liver? Fuck you!
Oh yeah, Kevin's here.
When did you get here?
Did you know?
Go
And I
back behind
feel
the
like
couch.
I want to get your guys' opinions.
Oh dear.
PlayStation has announced officially that we've been pronouncing the name of the button wrong since PS1's inception. It is not the X button.
It's cross.
It is the cross button.
Why is there?
Did you know that?
Why is there cross
Because it's...
in the wrong direction then?
No.
No,
As
it's
in-
not a religious cross, you idiot.
As in the two things intersecting.
But did you? They
Yes.
officially announced it. That which honestly goes against the entire theme of the controller anyway. Triangle, square, circle, cross. What? Call it an X. That's what it is, you motherfucker. That's a shape. But yes, so that was officially released. Feelings. Give me your feelings.
See, it doesn't shock me because there are, like, anime out there, like, most people call it Hunter x Hunter.
Right.
It's not. It's usually just Hunter Hunter.
Or Hunter cross Hunter.
Yep. And, like, it's very common for Japanese titles to have cross, and we pronounce it X.
Well, Monster Hunter released Monster Hunter Double Cross, which was just two X's.
Yep.
It wasn't Monster Hunter XX.
Yep.
Which also wouldn't make sense anyway if you think... Hi, dog. Which wouldn't make sense anyway, because if you think about it, it's like... Would it be Final Fantasy Cross? Or Final Fantasy Cross 2?
And cross 3.
But that also wouldn't fit the theme anyway, because it's Roman numerals for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But, I want your thoughts, Paul. Oh, he's fine.
I know, but his breathing was very loud, and it was right into the microphone.
That was my dog. My dog.
We only have room for 3 hosts, not 4. Especially one that's cuter than all 3 of us combined.
Only room for 3 dogs in this room. And one of them happens to be a hot one.
Thank you. I like that you talk about me like that.
Like a hot dog. And I'll be frank.
No, don't point. You're wrong. Go away.
So what was their angle? Like, why did they decide that after all this time? Why does it make so like? Why did they have to distinguish that it's not an X, it's a cross?
I feel like it's... propaganda is not the right word. I feel like it's...
To get people talking because something was going to happen, like, for PlayStation, like the release of Borderlands 3? I'm just saying.
I feel like they're just trying to cause a kerfuffle. like Nintendo did by calling it the correct pronunciation is NES, not NES.
So here's where
which doesn't make sense because NES is an acronym.
Exactly. So here's how I feel about it is that yes, Nintendo, like there's always been the debate of people who call it the NES and people who call it the NES. In my opinion, I think they're both right. Because
Absolutely.
if you say NES, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you say NES, I know what you're talking about.
Alright, so to be honest, if I say NES, it's usually just because I don't feel like, it's more of a shorthand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no different. But either way, you say it one way or the other, I know exactly what you're talking about. So they can come out and say, nope, you've been saying it all wrong. It's NES. It doesn't matter. People are still going to call it NES. People are still going to call it NES.
Right.
Now, the PlayStation, on the other hand, that seems a lot less, useful. Why would they clarify? Oh, guys, you know what? Here's the fun fact.
For your edification.
For your clarification here, we did not have the funding to make the triangle. It was supposed to be a diamond.
It's a pyramid. The pyramid button.
Yeah, it's the pyramid button.
Which also...
To be honest, I think part of it
I'm sorry. Let me push the roll button.
No. So, I think part of it is because, it's just a way of drumming up, making people talk. But I think a big thing is, you gotta remember, the Xbox controller is what? XYBA.
Right.
So, they went with cross so as not to be we're using the same shtick.
But Xbox also came out and on a thing and said the one thing that unites all gamers, no matter what you play, is the X button.
Yeah,
it's on every single controller.
And I'm sorry, but PlayStation started in 1995. September of 1995 is when it came out in the United States. Xbox did not come around until 2001. They had I can't do math. They had 6 wonderful years all by themselves of having that fucking X button. You know what? Don't shake your head at me or else I'm gonna push the box button, okay?
The box! Well, that's the part that irritates me, is the fact that there are games with voice dialogue that call it the X button.
They say push the X button.
Push the X button. Mm-hmm. They don't say push the cross button.
No.
Which that would have made sense. Although everybody would have been like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah. That's why I don't understand why. I can understand. Going back to it, I can understand Nintendo because there always was that debate. Is it NES or is it NES? So they clarified it for you. Sony Playstation, there was no debate. Nobody thought, push the cross button, the cross button, push the sticks.
But at the same time, the NES versus NES clarification is the same thing as the guy that created GIFs coming out and saying they're pronounced GIFs.
Oh, yes.
It's stupid.
So, yes. And
I
would
say... It's a position that doesn't need to be taken.
I would say PlayStation is more in the same boat as that one, then.
Yeah.
It's because you're correcting something where there was no correction needed to be made. Everybody knows what you're talking about. And now by saying that guys, you've been saying it all wrong. It's the cross button. Now you're going to frickin' confuse the hell out of everybody.
Maybe that was the point.
Like I said, I think it was just a ploy.
It
Honestly,
had to have been.
I think it was just a joke. And as usual, the internet takes it too far.
I'm gonna stick to it.
Too far in the internet never happens.
Never happens.
So we got the box button now, we got the pyramid, and we got the roll.
The roll button. Yep. It's not a circle, it's a halo button.
It's a roll.
But yeah, I thought that was really funny, and I saw that and I was like, I have to bring this up because I know Paul probably never saw it.
That makes me I don't know why, but I'm getting frustrated about it because
that makes me happy that you're frustrated about it.
It's just it's guys, it's not mug root beer, it's MUG root beer. You've been saying it wrong for the last 100 years. It's MUG. Why do you put a dog on it? Because the dog is cute. People are going to drink the root beer because they see a cute dog holding it. But it's MUG.
But Mountain Dew is now MTN Dew. It's like them coming. It's not Mountain Dew anymore. It's Mountain Dew. We've completely taken the vowels out of it, except for the Dew part. No, I don't know. I thought that was Dew.
It's like
you're sneezing.
Like you're sneezing.
Do. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad that they clarified that because
Thank you, Sony.
You just, yes. My life was incomplete for the last,
I don't know, man.
shoot, 15 years, almost. Wait,
You said 95.
95, so that's, oh wow, that's 24
Whoa.
years.
Don't you
24
feel
years. Thank you very much, Sony PlayStation. That is a 24-year question that I can now put to bed.
Done and done, baby.
Cross.
The cross.
The cross. Square to pyramid. The pyramid.
Square to pyramid.
I hate my brain.
All right.
Does it make the French call it lacrosse?
Lacrosse. No.
Oh.
Push the Lacoste button.
They call it the LaCroix button.
Oh boy.
Oh, man.
Wow, we are really off topic.
Yeah, we're
now.
shooting blanks.
What are you talking about?
Only
Shooting
one of
blanks?
us shoots blanks.
Only one of us, man.
And that was by choice. No, so I wanted to talk about that. The next thing I wanted to mention, all right, and we kind of glossed over it in the last Powercast, was you had brought up the question, what's the big fucking deal about the crunch? The whole idea of of crunch time and how, like what's the problem with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
So-
I don't see what the big deal is. People are all up in arms about, oh, there's labor laws to protect against that, and these employees are being forced to do the crunch. It's people back in the day, like they did that because they were passionate about something,
Right,
and there
right,
was
right.
never any question about, oh, why you're working them too hard. It's no, they're doing it because they want to.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't see what the big deal is.
So at the time, I was, for some reason, that fucking episode, I couldn't formulate a thought to save my
No,
goddamn
you
life.
could not.
That was a disaster.
Yeah, no,
I don't
you're
know what happened.
You were tired.
But
You
now
were having
I've
a stroke.
I have formulated a rebuttal to this, and the crunch, I feel, is a matter of perspective. In Tobias and Boone's, those are the two, right?
And Boone and John Tobias, you're
Yes,
talking
yes.
about?
In their case, it was the passion project, so they didn't mind doing the crunch. But as far as, like, if you're, let's say, a peon in a company,
Okay.
and someone says, hey, we need this out, you're working 13 hours, and it's not a passion project of yours, then I could see it kind of crossing a line. You know what I mean? There's a difference between doing it because it's yours, and doing it because it's your job.
Well,
You know what I mean?
but at the same time, at least in the U.S., I don't know how it is in other countries, and depending on what your position is in a company, if you are hourly, I don't know if they can necessarily mandate it.
I know.
And I know it varies state to state,
Yeah.
but then, like, anything after 40 hours, you're making more money anyways, so...
Right, there's overtime.
Yeah, but if your salary.
Now, if your
that's
salary,
not-
on the
yeah,
other
that's not
hand,
gonna-
That doesn't
you're shooting
matter,
yourself
no.
in the foot anyways,
Right.
because you don't have a choice.
Right. You pretty much working as much as they want you to.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's kind of where the line gets shitty. Like it leans more towards the shitty side is when it's like if we had to do something like that where we're under the crunch. Well, we love Power Trip, so we're happy to do it. But let's say we hire somebody to do our stuff and we say, you need this out by tomorrow. Like, and I don't care what else you have to do. Like, then it becomes like they're going to start resenting us because now they're working on something that they don't really even care about. You know, they're just doing it because it's a job. I know why you're snickering.
It's true, but if they don't want to, they just won't do it.
Clearly that works.
Well, see,
No,
that's what my big thing too is. If you aren't, it's such a like physical burden on you, and like I know not everyone has the stability to do it, but you have the right to just say no and walk away from the company.
Right. But like
yeah,
you said, for a lot of people, that's not an option.
That's not an option for some people, and I understand that. And so, yes, I think with any job that you get into, if there is a chance that you're working on a project or working on something where there's going to be an element of crunch, of a deadline that you have to establish, you're going to do whatever you can to get it done because, I mean, for some people, maybe your job's on the line. So it's like it makes you want to do it. It makes you have to do it.
Yeah.
There's no choice. You just have to kind of power through it and get it done. I guess where my mindset is then is, and maybe, I don't know, call me callous, but when it comes to the crunch, yes, you may be doing this for 2 weeks, you may be doing this for 3 weeks, you may be doing it a month, but once the crunch is done, it's not like you're moving right into that next crunch, or it's like literally that crunch time is your entire job, where they're saying, nope, now for the next 5 years, these are the hours that you're keeping, otherwise you can go walk away. The crunch is only a limited time thing when they're really rushing to try to get everything to be as perfect as it possibly can before that release date. And then once it's done, then you get out. And sometimes, and maybe not all companies do this, but I know that some companies, like, they'll basically give you like a sabbatical, or they will give you some kind of incentive for what you've done, like whether it's an extra day of vacation time, of PTO or whatever it is, or a couple days, or some kind of bonus at the end of it where you'll get a couple $1,000 or a couple $100, whatever it ends up being. So I think that maybe it's what
kind of fantasy world do you fucking live in? Jesus Christ! What company does that?
Honestly,
I don't know.
I know a couple of tech companies that do, so...
Yeah. The example I was given was somebody was working... they program software or something. And they had finished the job, and then, like, I don't know if it was finished early or something, but it was like a week before it was supposed to, like, the deadline. And the head of the project said, this isn't going to work. Scrap the whole thing, start over. You have a week to get done 2 months worth of work. That's kind of where it gets shitty.
So I'm sorry, but in my thought of that, that's just bad management.
Oh, absolutely.
That is terrible, god-awful bad management. If you could not tell that person before the 1 week deadline that, hey, this isn't going to work, I need you to start this from square one, when you know that it took that person 2 months and now they have to consolidate that all into 1 week, you're not going to
start from scratch.
You're not going to get... That's not good for the person who's doing it. It's not good for the company because it's going to show an inferior product at the end of it because you put them through this kind of ringer.
Right.
That's just bad management.
Well, and the other thing is, like, I don't know why, but some people that I have talked to about, like, the crunch stuff, especially in game development, for some reason, people get these thoughts in their head that, well, everyone is always crunching on, doing everything, but in development, especially in software development, that's not how stuff, unless you are the only, like, programmer doing it, that's not how development works.
Right.
Like, say the three of us were working on a project and developing something like that. Paul would, like, you would take, like, art stuff. Paul would take some other, like, asset
sound
thing,
effects or something like
and then
that.
I would take another aspect, and then we'd each be doing completely different things. So it's not like we're all crunching on everything.
Right.
And then, so, like, I know, like, when that crunch time happens and other people in other, like, subgroups aren't having to crunch on theirs, there are times when they help with the other departments doing stuff.
Right.
So they do that to, like, alleviate the pressure. So it's not, it's not like it's this one ubiquitous, boom, everyone is in this, like, super hyper crunch thing.
Yeah.
So
it's like as some people finish, then they can then help out the other people with what they need to help lighten that load, and then therefore it then starts trickling to each segment of it so that everybody gets done faster than what they need to.
Now, like, if it's a single person, that's why, like, some indie games take forever to come out.
Because they're doing everything.
They're doing everything. But when it's, like, a big team developing stuff, there's a crunch, but it is not the same type of crunch.
Yeah.
I don't feel like video games in particular have a crunch anymore. Like, how many games nowadays are delayed compared to, like, back in the day?
Only if you work for Square Enix.
Shit.
No, you're right.
But honestly, like, there are games now where if the game's not delayed, something kind of fishy about that.
Well, the other big thing is we know about games a lot sooner in their development cycles nowadays.
Oh God, yes.
Look at E3 and stuff. We got announced, like, the Final Fantasy VII remake when, what was it, PS4 launched, or was it before?
Are you sure it was the remake and it wasn't just the port of the...
No, that was a tech demo.
No,
that was a tech demo.
But see, that was their justification at the end. But that was actually part of the team that was doing the remake.
Because they did that with the PS4 as well, with Star Ocean. Don't you remember?
Yeah.
The tech demo for the PS4 was a Star Ocean thing. Well, we didn't see a Star Ocean for years after that.
But see, and that's the thing is like, that's part of the problem is nowadays we know so much more about what's going on.
That's true.
That's kind of why I like the way Gearbox handled it with Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 was in development for 5 years before we heard anything.
Yeah, because, I mean, look at Metroid Prime 4. They just announced it, and
They were working on it for a year, and then they basically made the announcement that they were scrapping everything and then starting over.
Yeah, hiring some other
Yeah.
person to come in and re-oversee the project. So
well, isn't it the same team that did the other 3?
I think it's the same management now or something like that.
But like that, you're right. Nowadays, they'll just tell you what the title of the damn game is, and they'll be like, you'll see it in 2027!
And like I said,
PS6!
That's the big
like,
problem with like
fuck.
E3 and stuff like that now is that used to be about the games coming out within a year, and it's not.
No.
It's like those big game shows are no longer about the up and coming. They're about the ones that are farther out.
It's basically the platform where it's basically like a teaser trailer for like movies, but it's teaser trailer for games where they literally... I'll never forget like when they showed Breath of the Wild, where it was just... it was just Link walking out, and you see this large expanse.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was it. It's like, okay,
Breath of the Wild,
coming out 2019, and this was in like 2015 or something like that. I mean, it was a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as bad as like what was it, Kingdom Hearts 3?
No,
we worked on it for this long. Now we're not doing. We're going to redo this.
Yeah.
We worked on this. Or what was the one for? It started off on PS3, kept getting teased.
Alien.
Oh no, Aliens, Colonial Marines.
Yeah.
Well, there was that one too, and
it was.
But see, that one.
Last Guardian.
That's the one.
It was Last Guardian.
But I'm gonna say, but the Aliens one is slightly different because originally it was announced by one company who was working on it.
Yes.
That company went defunct, and then another company bought it, and Gearbox is the one that bought it. And
but it was PS2. It was supposed to be released on.
Shit.
yeah,
PS2,
so, like,
and then it came out at like almost near the tail end of like the PS3's.
Yeah, but that's because the company that was working on it went under, and no one bought the game. Like they kept working on it, and then no one bought the stuff, and then I'm pretty sure it was Gearbox eventually bought the stuff.
I think so.
They had a partially finished game that they were told to finish and put out.
Yeah,
and that's why the game was garbage.
And they did, and it was garbage. Yeah.
I know the game Last Guardian was the one you were thinking of because it was supposed to be like
a launch title for PS3 or something.
PS4. Oh yeah, it might have been 3.
It was
because it was the follow up to Shadow of the Colossus.
Because it was. I remember that getting announced years ago, and then they kept postponing it and delaying it and delaying it, and it became the running joke of, oh, it'll be on the next PlayStation system. So when they announced it for PS4, it was, oh, that must mean the PS5's right around the corner. So
it was sad because Last Guardian came out and it did look like a late PS3 title, which was an unfortunate thing. But I don't know. I can going back to the crunch thing. It's like I can definitely see where like how it can be good and how it can be bad.
I can see it. Yes, I can see the bad in it. But I also, because of the fact that it is not a permanent status, you're not crunching like that becomes your new hours.
Right.
Like it's literally a project that has to be done. So it's 2 weeks to 4 weeks, whatever it is. You're working these 12-hour days, 14-hour days, or maybe you're doing 16-hour days for a week or 2 weeks. Like
days.
Well,
fuck.
Yes, that would really be shitty. That would be terrible.
Hell yeah.
But the fact that it's like that's not your job going forward. That's just during this time where everything needs to be good for the betterment of the company and for whatever it is that you're putting out. This is unfortunately what it has to be.
Well, and see, this is where I will say this is part of the problem with like the major publishers, because it's basically when a publisher says, we're going to fund your project and you're going to make this game, they basically say, well, this is the cutoff line. This is where it needs to be out so we get maximum profits. And most publishers, especially if you look at companies like EA and stuff like that, they're not very forgiving on pushing those deadlines. So
they're also aren't they notorious too for releasing half a game? We'll fix it later in a patch.
See, and then that's a modern gaming problem altogether. Is just
they'll rush out the discs because they want to get the physical copies out, and then they'll release literally a day one patch.
Well, no, but see, there's a difference between a day one patch to me and then completing the game and then like putting it out there as part of a download. A day one patch is just we found, like after the game went gold, we found a couple of flaws that need to be addressed. we addressed them. Like, if it's like 3 gigs and under of a patch, I don't consider that much of an issue. But then when you get a day one patch and it's like 10 gigs...
10 plus.
And you're like, something's not right, which basically means my disc was just a verifier to install just so I could actually download it in Destiny.
Tony Hawk 5.
No, it wasn't just Destiny. There was another game I thought that released, and then day one, it was like a fucking 50 gig, like...
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
Really?
Yeah. It was literally, it came out, and day one patch was like, it was like 20 some odd gigs, and it's like, well, ironically enough, that's the size of a game. So, like, basically, and it means that once the PlayStation Network is no longer active and stuff like that, if you get your hands on that game, then you basically, like, you're screwed, because then the patch is not going to be... I almost
want to buy a copy of the game, make sure my system's in offline mode, so and see what happens.
And see what actually looks... Yeah, because I think it's nothing more than just probably like almost like a tech demo. Yeah.
See, I understand. And see, that's the sort of, like, crunch I would take issue with. Is when a developer's the publisher's like, this is our cutoff line, now you make sure, I don't care what you have to do, you do it.
Get it done.
So, unfortunately, that would be the case of, like, I mean, even going back in time, that was E.T. in a nutshell, with what they did to Howard Scott Warshaw. Yeah. They literally said, we saw E.T., and we need to capitalize for the holiday shopping season. You need to get this game out, and it's got to go to market by November, so therefore we have to get this game done and ready and put off so that we can get the cartridges and everything, the boxes and all stuff. So it's got to be done by September, so then that means that you, Howard Scott Warshaw, you have 6 weeks to design a game. When the average time to design a game was like literally 4 to 6 months, he was given 6 weeks. And we're not talking like, oh, he was kind of tinkering around with an idea. No, he was told at that point, you have 6 weeks to conceptualize a video game
and fully
develop and program it so that it can be sent off in 6 weeks. Now that is a crunch that, yes, again, it's only 6 weeks, so again, it's only temporary. So I understand that he was dealt a very bad hand in that situation, but that's not his working conditions like every other time afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and the same for the guy that translated Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. And he was given the script and said, you've got, what was it, a month or two or something like that?
Wasn't it like 2 weeks or something like that?
He had 2 weeks. He had some absurd time.
The one guy, he had 2 weeks to translate the entire script of the game, yeah.
So it's like, that's the sort of stuff that it's like, yeah, that's the crunch that's bullshit. And there's no other way around that. But, yeah, you're right. If it's a passion thing you're doing, you're not going to notice. Now, if you have a family, yeah, it's going to be stressful on that sort of, like, outside, like, life, but... Yeah. I mean, you do what you do for what you like.
Well, and that's... And I guess money. Maybe that's why I'm so callous about it, is because... And maybe it's... I mean, maybe I'm thinking in an idealistic world, in an idealistic situation, but if you find after that crunch, yes, your family doesn't like it, and you didn't like it, you didn't like being separated from your family, and you feel like the risk of this happening again is very possible with the company that you're with, then you know what? As soon as that crunch is done and things go back to being calm for a little bit, and if they don't, then, I don't know, figure out some time into it, start looking for another job. Well, start seeing what else is out there, because obviously this is not treating you very fairly, and if this is going to be a recurring thing, then use that as your springboard to get the hell out of there.
Well, and the same thing is if the pay or the compensation isn't adequate for going through stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's... You take what you can get, and then you just say, you know what, screw this, I need better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. It's one of those tricky situations, I think. I feel like there is, especially because it might be weirder for us because we don't have families. Like, we're all,
that's true.
We don't have that kind of thing. So it's like, I can see, like, if all of a sudden you're having to miss birthdays for kids or...
Are you saying my dog doesn't count as family? I'm wounded!
You need to get that dog a damn job, all right? Dogs on Instagram, hashtag. But, like, maybe it's a different spot when you're, like, your marriage is now affected because...
Especially if you have young kids.
Yeah. But like you said, maybe that's motivation enough to just be like, look, I need to find something else.
I gotta find something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was passionate about this, but you know what? There's more than one video game company out there.
Well, and
there's startups that are forming like every day too.
And on the flip side of it, there are individuals whose entire jobs is going into companies and working during crunch times like that. Mm-hmm. And that's what they thrive on.
A closer.
Yeah, because it's like, well, because they
Some
probably
people work better under pressure.
Well, not even just that, but they probably set up.
They like the
they
high
know,
octane type.
They know that
churn
it's
out.
like, okay, I will give you 16 hours, but you're going to give me a base pay of this, and because it's only for, say, a month or 2 months. Most companies will say, yeah, we'll give you this, which equates to like double what you would normally make because it's only a limited time and it's not a full contract that they're giving you.
Like a seasonal work.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like there are people, especially in the tech industry, that's their entire job.
Mm-hmm.
They jump from company to company and just help finish projects like that. So, I mean, that's what they like doing.
I don't know if they necessarily jump job to job. I think they
do.
No.
But software side, I don't know about hardware.
No, it's like they're like a consultant. So it's not like they're going into a job and then quitting and then going to another job. They're considered like a consultant.
Yeah,
so
they're a third party contractor.
Yes, yeah.
They're not hiring and then quitting and then finding another company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that actually just.
That'd be weird.
Off the rails. That's bad for a company. Like you don't you don't want like 5 or 6 different places in like a span of 4 years. That just looks bad on a resume.
Is that the truth? Well, I suppose if you describe what the nature of your work is, it might not be.
And that's true too.
I mean, if you can get 5 or 6 different places to hire you, you clearly know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So actually, I wanted to say something about when you were talking about E3. I'd say the only one that E3 kind of, like, the games they showcase kind of released soon was Nintendo. Their games that they showed at E3,
Usually
with the exception of, like, a couple or a few, are usually out within a year or 2 years, or, hell, even months. I mean...
Well, and there's the surprise ones. Oh, by the way, it's on the shop now.
Yeah. Like, even their Nintendo Directs that they do, what is that, monthly, every couple months? How often do they do that?
They've seemed to be going more frequently lately.
Yeah, like, those are surprising to me. Like, when they announced the Deadly Premonitions 2 sequel, which I never thought was ever going to happen.
No, Origins? Is that Origins?
Origins was a remake of the one for
the first one.
For the first
Or
one.
when they announced, like, the remake of Second Detsu 3,
Yeah.
and then they just turn around, oh, by the way, here's a collection of mana on the Switch now. Go get it.
Yeah, like, Nintendo...
Here's Second Detsu 3 fully translated to English for the first time on the Switch. Go get it.
Nintendo has been straight up killing it when it comes to announcements.
Yeah, too bad they just, can't get off their asses with certain
Yeah, but
IPs.
that's not always a good thing to, like, say, oh, and by the way, it's out now, because talk to Sega about that one. Famous E3 blunders. Look at the Sega Saturn. The 32-bit processing, CD-ROM-based system. It's going to revolutionize video gaming history. When does that come out? I'm glad you asked. It's actually in stores now.
Yeah, but that's a whole console. It's not like Nintendo went there and was like, by the way, 4DS, bitch! I got some in my back pocket!
Hardware is a little bit different than software.
Absolutely.
Now.
No.
Plus, with
And besides, it was the the developers of the games who weren't even told that the system was live. Like, wait a minute, you mean we were supposed to be making games for the system? Like, and so Sega Saturn had like 3 games at launch. That was it for like the first 2 or 3 months.
what was it, Knights? I remember was a release title.
I don't know if it was
Daytona.
Daytona USA. I think was.
I think that was too, and it was something else. I remember Knights was because that was like a pack-in.
That was like the tech demo that was everywhere.
Yeah, because I remember because the Saturn came with that 3D controller.
The 3D controller, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the
is funny because
game for that.
Which is funny because that 3D controller, it was longer and bulkier. It's like I never realized it because I don't think I'd ever seen one up close.
Yeah.
It was really the inspiration for what ended up becoming like the Dreamcast controller. Like
Yeah,
if you look at the shape and stuff like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anything's better than that fucking Goliath Xbox put out at
The
first.
Duke.
Oh
Jesus
my God! I remember that.
Fucking battering everybody.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
Well, that still doesn't beat the manual. Don't drop on small
The
children.
whole system was a weapon, down to the controller.
Didn't they once do like a thing with the Xbox where it's like they did a test of like dropping it on a dog and it would kill a small dog if you dropped it.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I know they did.
mean, the manuals did say don't drop on small children, though.
Yeah, because
that thing was a Goliath.
Yes, it was. It was a big, heavy, bulky ass machine.
Yeah. But I mean, Nintendo, as far as like the releases, they're good at saying this is coming out later, but here's something to whet your appetite.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be what they're doing with the Switch, and I'm all for it. I love what they've been releasing.
Is Deadly Premonition's Origins, is that out already?
Yes, it is.
Is it? Like, did they do a physical release of it, or was it just on the...
I think it's digital.
Oh, it's just digital. Okay.
Because I know they announced the sequel to Deadly Premonition, and then I want to say they were like, by the way, here's the first one, baby.
Yeah,
and I think it was scaled
it.
or something. Yeah. Which is cool, because I love Deadly Premonition. I think the game's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's Twin Peaks, baby.
It's Twin Peaks, yeah. It's basically Twin Peaks.
But, yeah, so I when you mentioned E3 being like, this is what's coming out in 4 years. I was about to say, well, Nintendo's they've been right on the money with they've knowing what to put out.
There's only been a couple as like lately that, and it's more of like the high caliber games, like the Breath of the Wild, Metroid Prime 4. So I mean, when it's a big landmark, or not landmark,
like a AAA
cornerstone title of theirs or something like that, they want to make sure that it's right, so they spend a lot more time on it.
Yeah, and I can admire that.
Oh, very much so.
Definitely can, man. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of Nintendo, I've been on vacation this past week, okay?
Okay.
And I went to a game store, and it started to roll around my mind a little bit, like, how, like, retro game stores actually, like, survive. Like, because, I mean, if you think about it, like, selling NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis, like, it's not quite the same as, like, selling, like, running GameStop, where it's, like, you can just order more of these games. You know what I mean? Like, pretty much a retro game store, their stock is not very replenishable.
Why couldn't you just order more games?
You couldn't sell a little Samson and then just order another one in your order form, like, for coming in stock.
Well, no, but
that's what I'm saying.
You can order more of, like, other retro games. It may not be that high caliber, but I mean, honestly, if you kept getting copies of Little Samson or Panic Restaurant or Power Blade 2, I mean, obviously then that store would never have to worry about ever going out of business.
No, but you gotta remember, in order to get those titles, probably gonna have to spend a lot more. Because, I mean, especially since we've talked about this with the inception of price charting, not just anybody's going to be saying, sure, I'll give you Panic Restaurant I'll sell it to you for $50, and then they turn around and sell it for $800. You know what I mean? Like, it's a non-replenishable commodity. You know what I mean? Like, once that game is sold out of that store, that's done. Like, there is no getting another one unless you're lucky. So it's like, that's why, like, I feel like a lot of mom and pop retro game stores have a harder time staying afloat.
Well, if you want,
well, I'm gonna say a big way they make up for that is by selling the modern reproduction peripherals.
Yeah, like the Retrons.
And, like, well, not just the Retrons, but
the
replacement controllers.
And,
a replacement pin connector for inside the NES.
Yeah.
Extra power bricks in case that's where they make up the difference between not being able to constantly move the high-end rare stuff as opposed to the more common stuff.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And video game, like mom and pop stores, I mean, there's no denying that they do have a difficult time with their stock, what they see, what they can't see, what they get in, and what they can then sell. But, I mean, first off, I mean, just kind of digressing a little bit when you say that a Panic Restaurant for $50, like, I think an honorable, like, store would never even allow that game to be sold to them for $50. They would.
You don't think so?
I honestly don't think so. Now,
you
if it's,
think too good of people.
Now,
what was that, Video Game Exchange?
I was just about to say that. I was going to say, now if it's a Video Game Exchange, he's like, oh, I'll probably give you $50 for everything that's in this box here.
It doesn't look that good in condition.
It really doesn't look like it's that good in condition.
Oh, stadium events?
I'm going to have to...
$10.
I'm going to have to clean up all the pin connectors. It's going to take, like, I don't know, like, well, there's, 10 games in here. It's going to take me, 30 hours to clean. Yeah, after all the time and labor I put in, I'll give you $25. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a little bit too close to home, huh?
Sick. Video Game Exchange sucks.
So, but what they do have difficulty in is that those mom and pop stores are reliant on people bringing them in stock that they can
Right.
buy and that they can resell. Now, yes, every so often you may come across a little Samson, you may come across a Snow Bros, you may come across one of those big games, and yes, they will sell it. And once they sell it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to make its way back to that store, but you can guarantee that whoever picked it up, there's a really good chance that whoever got it, they're going to keep it. And so that game is now out of stock completely. And so they rely on people bringing in trade-ins. Well, now with everything going digital and basically everything being sold on eBay, if somebody buys that same cartridge from them, like a Panic Restaurant for $300, and they know that they can then sell it on eBay for $500. I'm just throwing out numbers here. I don't know if that's the case, but then that game is now permanently out of their supply possibility because nobody is going to be trading it in here in Wisconsin because it just got shipped out to Florida. So now a mom and pop store in Florida is going to get that game. So I think that there is a lot of things that they would have to worry about as far as getting games in, but then, like Kevin said, that's where you start supplementing, where you have other things. I cannot remember the last time I saw just a straight up video game store that wasn't merged with something else, like whether it's Magic cards,
Pokemon.
whether it's Pokemon cards, whether it is plushies and video game like paraphernalia, pop figures, anything, board games, pop culture, everything. It's always mixed into one. I've seen video game coffee stores as well too. I mean, they use something else so that if one side of it goes down, you've got another side that will pick it back up again.
That's why it kind of scares me with like Pre-Played that we go to in Madison, because it's like their other half is DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever,
movies, music, and
which really. Even that's kind of shifting away. Like,
it is.
Who's going to go out and buy a DVD anymore? You know, it's like you kind of don't.
Well,
but I feel like as far as like the retro collecting goes, most collectors will not buy online. We've kind of found that out over the years that a lot of like the hunters for retro games, they prefer to stay away from eBay and online purchases. They want to see that cart. They want to see the condition it's in. They want to see the box, which is going to draw them into the store anyway. But like I feel like that's kind of more what keeps retro game stores alive, as opposed to like losing completely to the internet.
Oh yeah,
is the fact that
it's
those collectors are really in it for the hunt.
They are.
Well, not just that. Is a lot of times online too, you run a very high risk of a reproduction card.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't know what you're looking for, I mean, look at was it Pokemon
Fire
Ruby?
Red.
Was it Fire Red?
No, it was Ruby.
It was Ruby.
It was
Ruby, where like it looked legit in the pictures. You got it, and it's not a legit card.
No, it wasn't.
It was only just a fluke where when you opened it up, you're like, the color's kind of off on this, or the label was kind of
thick.
off.
It was a little bit thicker than it should have been.
And then you put them side by side, and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't real.
Yeah.
So, but to piggyback on your point, yes, I would say that any retro game collector would rather see it in a store in their physical presence so that they can pick it up, they can look at it, they can examine it, so that they know what they're getting. Because there is a high chance that if you order something online, it may not be what's in the picture. Or they say that it works, but then when you get it and it doesn't work, they'll say, "Oh, well, it worked when I shipped it off, so therefore it's not on me, it's on you," or it's a reproduction, or the condition is not as good as what they had described, or through no fault of the sellers, that item went through the shipping process and just ended up getting damaged through shipping. Or lost.
Sent to New Jersey.
There's so many, Thanks, GameStop. We're sure gonna miss you. But
I'm not.
No, I'm being sarcastic. I mean, kind of, but not so much. But anyways, there's so many different wild cards and so many different things that you run the risk of if you buy it online.
Yeah.
And one thing that it does take away is that when you buy online, you are competing with a whole bunch of other people, especially like on eBay and auction sites. You're competing with a whole bunch of people who know exactly what it is, what they want, and they may want it more than you do. So if you're willing to spend $300 on a $250 game, but you just happen to come across somebody who's willing to spend $400 on that game, then it doesn't matter. You're out.
And see, that's something else you kind of lose with doing it online is, say I went into a mom and pop shop and they have a game I want. Well, maybe I might be able to haggle with them and be like, I have an extra copy of this other one that goes for a certain amount. Will you take off X amount from the price of this game if I trade in this one for, and we do an exchange kind of?
That reminds me of that one store we went to in Milwaukee. I don't remember the name of it, but he was talking about how anytime somebody wanted to buy his expensive stuff, he would like only allow them to buy.
He wouldn't let them buy it. You would have to like basically trade them.
Yeah,
so that if he gets rid of something super rare, he's got to put something super rare in there so that he's not left holding the bag of like, sports games and all these other things.
Now my store's got nothing but common crap.
Exactly.
You know, because there are some people like that who just go around and they just scoop up all the really good shit, and then now they have a good supply of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I actually thought that was kind of clever of him.
Yeah.
A little weird in a business sense.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I've never heard of a guy just denying somebody a purchase, but...
No, we have. Because we've gone into the one store where it's basically just a guy showing off his old toys.
Oh, yeah.
The one in
downtown. None of this is for sale.
No,
I just rent a storefront to show it off. What a dick.
So, but, no, another fun thing of, like, the hunt is that when you do it in person and you get to see all the different mom and pop stores, you run a very low, but you still run a chance that you may find a diamond in the rough. You may find a game like a Bonk's Adventure that for some reason it's only priced at $9, and you're like, well, why is it only priced at $9? Because they don't know what they have, so you decide to buy it.
You mean not $1,600?
Well, if it's got the box, you're talking
that's where, like,
$3,000.
That's where going to like true like flea markets and like rummage sales are good.
Oh,
like, you can go in and find a box of like old games and be like, well, they're like, well, it was just my kids. They don't use them anymore.
Yeah.
This amount for just take the box and start digging through it, and you find some great stuff in there.
Yeah, and it's priced $5 a piece no matter what it is.
And that's another reason why I do feel like, yeah, mom and pop stores, like video game retro stores, they do have their work cut out for them. It's not an easy gig. Like, you're not going to go into that business getting rich. You're basically going to do what you love doing. But I think there's a lot more work that has to be done now than there used to be, where because you're getting rid of your stock to other people who may want to keep it, they're not trading it back, they have to then take the initiative to say, I've got to go to the flea markets and I've got to see what I can find so that I can put that in my store.
Hit up rummage sales.
Do whatever you need to.
And then another fun aspect of doing it that way is you never know the type of people you're going to run into. So you might run into another collector and spark up a conversation, and then all of a sudden you're networking and you have other people you're basically doing stuff alongside at different places, and they can be like, oh, hey, by the way, I was at this store, I saw this, a game you want. Did you want me to grab this? And you'd be like, oh, yeah, I saw this other one over here that you're looking for. And then you guys, you can network that way. You don't get that same networking really on the...
Oh, yeah.
To a certain degree, you can go to, like, the forums and you sort of get it, but you don't get that type of connection going on.
Yeah. In the heyday of my collecting and stuff, I met many, many different kinds of people, many wonderful people. I remember one of the guys that and this was before, like, I would take you around, too, because this is when I went to the Kenosha Flea Market,
which is ashamed of you.
No.
That's fair.
No, this is when, it was like 2002, or no, maybe 2003, so it was like before we started hanging out, like, a lot.
On the rigs.
Exactly. But I remember going to the Kenosha Flea Market, and there was a guy who had you could tell his whole store was just like retro video games, because I remember one of the things that he had he had a case. One of the things he had was Ocarina of Time in the box with with the strategy guide attached to it. And it was like, I want to say it was like $60 is what he was charging for it, which is, even like in 2003, that was a lot of money. And so then I ended up finding a a box of Nintendo games, that's where I found Snow Bros for $5.
Wow.
Every game in that box was $5, which is why I still kick myself to this day, because it's like I wish I would have known now I wish I would have known back then what I know now, because then I would have been looking for other games, other rare games that it's like, shoot, that's going to be rare one day, or shoot, I didn't even know that Panic Restaurant at that point existed, so maybe Panic Restaurant was in that box too. But yeah, I ended up just striking up a conversation with the guy. His name was Fred. He was a really great guy. He had a daughter who lived in Kentucky, and she would come over, or before she had moved to Kentucky. No, I take that back. She wasn't in Kentucky. He used to go over to his daughter's house for dinner, and then I remember seeing him every so often. Like, I would go back into the Kenosha flea market, and then he wasn't there anymore. And I, like, for the life of me, I was worried about him, because it did look like he did smoke a lot, and so I thought like maybe he had cancer or something like that. And one day I went into the flea market, and this was like 5 years later, and I was like, you know what, I don't know if you would be able to answer this question. There was a woman who looked like she was like walking around like she knew the place, and so I thought maybe it was like a manager. It said, I don't suppose you know a guy who used to have a booth here? And she's like, what was his name? I'm like, I think it was Fred. And she told me that it's like, oh yeah, I remember that guy when he was here. He actually moved to Kentucky because his daughter moved out there, and so he actually just kind of went with her, and so now they're living in Kentucky. And I'm like, that's great. And so it's like, that's the kind of, I know it's a kind of a pointless story, but
no, it's a connection you make.
But still, that's the kind of story that you don't get from eBay, from Amazon, from getting a game online where you don't know what it is that you're buying. You get to have these extra stories that you associate with the games that you pick up. And
that's why I feel like those mom and pop stores, that's why they haven't succumbed to that internet yet.
Nope.
No, like GameStop has or whatever, is because those types of connections are what people want. Especially the people who are collecting, because let's be honest, like even the Midwest Gaming Classic, you're not going to get like just some mom and dad and their fucking 4-year-old coming in off the street to look for Super Mario 3. It's like, no, they're coming in with a purpose. Like those people that are going there are there to find things.
Yeah.
Which is what I feel like those mom and pop stores, that's kind of what they are.
You do also slightly get those people that go in to show their kids this is what they used to do. Yeah. This is what they used to play.
Like the people we get at Free Comic Book
Day. Like you do get those type of people at Midwest Gaming Classic as well. So I mean, granted they usually do end up picking up stuff, but like they usually go there with more of an intent of like, I remember the heyday of when we did this, and when we were a kid type thing.
Oh yeah.
So,
but that's, I mean, that's one edge I feel like those mom and pop stores have, as far as that goes. But it still seems like such a volatile business to try to get into without having something else in the store to fall back on.
Yeah. They have an edge because of the fact that they collect and they take in all kinds of retro games. Like GameStop will only take in the newer stuff, the PS3s, the Xbox 360 games and stuff like that. But again, mom and pop stores also have the possibility that they can say, you have this box of what looks like $100 worth of games, I'll give you $50 for it. When's the last time you went into a GameStop and you got $50 in store credit? Or $50 in cash?
Pokemon. You sell Pokemon to them, you basically get your profit right back.
I suppose, but in some cases,
I don't know anymore.
How many times have you ever heard a story of somebody walking into GameStop with a frickin' stack, a big ass stack of like 20 games, and they're like, "Well, I'll give you $5.26 store credit."
I must say, I was shocked when I stupidly traded in my Pokemon Heart Gold, and I got $23 back. $23 fucking dollars. I was like, I nearly came.
That to you is a victory story.
No, because I realized that game later was ending up selling for $80.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that people associate, like, that's what they associate GameStop with. That's where you go to trade in your games if you just want a couple bucks. Like,
pretty much.
Literally. So mom and pop stores have more of that personal feeling, that personal touch that GameStop, which is an industry, does not have.
Absolutely.
Or it's a corporation, not an industry. It's a corporation, basically.
And they do. I mean, so this store that I went to it is in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. They just had some really goofy shit. Like I saw a boxed 3DO, which I'd never seen a 3DO before.
Oh wow.
I mean, I just saw some really cool box stuff that I normally wouldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I don't know, like something about it. It's so cool to me, but at the same time, I'm like, this is to be such a fragile environment. You know what I mean?
Well, and
because like I said, if somebody comes in like he's like some big shot's not the right word, but like some rich guy, and he's just like, what's the rarest shit you got in here? I'm taking all of it. That business is probably gonna go under. Because it's like now you have nothing anybody wants. So it's like he's essentially just wiping out this business, kind of like what that what is it? That video game exchange did with the whole Goodwill thing. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of in a weird way the same thing. It's
Saint Vincent de Paul.
Yeah.
Their
I thought
annual,
it was Goodwill. I'm sorry.
Saint Vincent de Paul. It was their annual rummage sale or something like that where. Yeah, I guess they do it like once a year or something like that, and so
it's just a purge crap, right?
It was just a purge stuff.
That's right.
But they'll keep like all of the video games and electronics in one area, all the clothing, all the shoes, and so that's
Isn't everything one like flat price?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter what the game might actually be worth, it's still $10.
But it's the same.
$5.
But it's the same situation you might get into at Goodwill, where and I've shopped at Goodwill enough to where it's like if you look at a case like and it's a game, you have to open it up to make sure the game's in there because sometimes people will donate their boxes of like DVDs, movies, CDs, video games, and the game's not in there or the CD's not in there. So
that's so weird.
Yeah, and say another thing with the mom and pop type stores too. I think location also depends on how well they survive.
Well, it does because it's what goes into the store.
Like if you've got more of a like an area where you've got visual where people can see the store and are tempted to come in and buy stuff versus one that say is like out in like the county or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like the foot traffic on that sort of stuff is really going to change your business too.
I suppose so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, that affects like every business, but I think that would have more of an impact on a small one.
I feel like something being in a more condensed area, though, would have so much shifting stock that you're almost better off going to those stores that are more out of the way. Or because then they'll have stuff that, like the treasures, like the diamonds in the rough, I feel. Mm. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No. But see, that's the thing, is it can go either way.
Yeah.
Especially with like smaller companies like the businesses like that, like, okay, yeah, you go into like one of the busy ones and they don't have, but then other collectors know to go and look for these smaller stores too. So at the same time, you might go out to them and all they have is the common stuff anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So,
what like pre-played that we go to is that how many stores is that? That's not nationwide, is it?
No,
I didn't think so.
No,
is that only like a few stores here and there?
I mean, they have the two in Madison, which are both independently owned.
Okay.
So there's the one on the east side and one on the west side.
Yeah.
And then there were stores in Milwaukee that looked like they were still the same thing. They were called Mega Media Exchange, but it was like the same setup, same design, so it may have been like the same thing.
I always thought they were all Mega Media Exchange.
No, the ones, the pre-playeds in Madison were the first ones that I ever noticed, because then when I actually went to Milwaukee once with my dad, we had passed on, well, you remember where the old one used to be on South 76th Street?
Yeah.
So we used to, we passed that on the way back, and I was like, wait a minute, that place says Mega Media Exchange, but it looks like the same font type as, like, where I go for pre-playeds. Yeah. And so I asked my dad, I was like, hey, do you mind if we stop here? And when I went in there, I was like, oh my God, this is like... this is it. This is pre-played. In fact, that's where I got the sealed copy of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I bought that thing for $2.99. And that was before, like, when everything was just a flat price. Like nothing was ever unless you had like the Legend of Zelda, because it was the gold card, so they would charge like maybe $7.99 for that one. But for the most part, all of their Nintendo games are a flat rate of like $3.99 or $2.99. Sports games were generally like $1.99.
You said that thing is sealed?
Yeah, it's sealed.
Like actually sealed? Like new?
Like actually sealed.
Yeah.
It's $190.
Oh.
Just so you know.
And it's autographed.
It's autographed by Charles Fleischer, who is the voice of Roger Rabbit.
I thought he was going to say Charles Manson.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know.
Don't listen to him, Jessica Rabbit.
Too many things. Oh. Ooh, rabbits.
Rabbits.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
So-
It's pre-plates. Those were good. Those were good times.
Well, and
They still have a lot of really good stuff.
Well, and that actually goes into like what my feelings are in the collecting landscape nowadays. That I think we've had discussions about this. I'm not sure if we've actually covered it on our podcast, but maybe it's an episode unto itself. But it often seems like I'm dead serious.
Podcast. What's a podcast?
Oh shit!
No,
I'm sorry.
It's a Powercast.
Oh my god, you jerk!
Sick burn, bro.
Sick burn. That's all I got. That's all I got. So, but no, what I miss about the collecting landscape is back when I started in like early 2003, maybe even the tail end of 2002. It seemed like such a niche thing where there was so few people doing it, and nobody was really saying that they collected video games. They kind of kept it to themselves, and whenever you would go into a video game store, even at the time, GameStop still had old stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you went into GameStop, you went into the mom and pop places, you went into the Game Crazies, they always had a humongous variety of stuff. Like, a lot of different things that you never see.
Yeah.
And as collecting got more big, as retro video games have really kind of hit this renaissance, you don't see that anymore. No. With the advent of price charting, everybody and their mother thinks that they're an expert, and now they know what the price of a video game is, so therefore that's what they're going to ask for, or they're going to ask $10, $15 more
or
than what
just,
it is.
Yeah, looking up wrong information.
Or
because I saw it on eBay sell for $1,500, that must mean it's worth $1,500.
Well, the biggest thing of that was that there was a store. Do you remember Storage Wars?
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy on there who he heard about the story about a Nintendo game selling. Well, he thought it was a system. And so he thought that this Nintendo system, it was a first-run Nintendo system, and so it's worth $10,000 because it sold for $10,000. And so he ends up finding a Nintendo in one of the the things, and thinks, oh yeah, it's a Nintendo 001. It's like, no, that just means it was the first run of the Nintendo. The 002 is like the the second generation one, the top-loading one.
Yeah.
The thing is that the lot that made the news, it went for $15,000 because of the fact that in the 6 games that was in that lot with that Nintendo was stadium events.
Of course.
And so this guy goes to this pawn shop where he's like, how much is this Nintendo? How much are you going to buy it from me for? The Nintendo didn't have a power cord. It had 2 controllers. I don't even think he had any games. So he's like, I don't even know if this thing works, but
I'll give you $10.
Conservatively, I think he offered him like $20 for it.
Wow, that's
like
generous.
without because he's like, it doesn't have a power cord. I don't even know if it works, and I can't test it because I don't have the power cord. But I would give you $20 for it. And so people get that misinformation, and they think that they have like a gold mine that they're sitting on when it's actually just bases loaded too. And so it's like with the advent of price charting and with everybody just getting into it and having this renaissance. Every game store that you go to, now you don't see that variety anymore. You don't. When's the last time we went to a store and we saw Bomberman?
Yeah.
You may think I'm kidding, but it's like, when's the last time you saw something like that?
Yeah,
but yet
right.
You'll always see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You'll always see Super Mario Brothers 2, 3. You always see everywhere you go the same games over and over again.
Well, I think a part of that too is like you guys. And probably the other, like, we'll just take Wisconsin as an example. You guys and other collectors in the state probably make the same runs to the same stores in circuit. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, this circuit might be tapped. There might be other places that don't have that many collectors around that are sitting on these gold mines because no one goes to that store.
No,
and that's why I feel
that's part of the problem with like especially with like you guys just going to the same stores repeatedly. Yeah, occasionally they'll get something good in and you'll find something great, but if you're just going to keep running the same track, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah,
after a certain
deplete
point.
the source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So you have to branch out and eventually find other places to go.
And that's why I feel like some of those places that are more out of the way would yield you better results because
They
it's stuff
might.
that hasn't been picked over, whereas something in Chicago has
you-
such high volume foot traffic.
Yeah,
But you
that's-
do run the risk, though, that because it's out of the way, yes, it may have some untapped gold in there, but people have to bring that stuff in. So if they're going out of their way to bring the stuff in, or they're not bringing the stuff in because they have to go out of their way, it's not going to make it in there.
And that was one thing I wanted to talk about too.
It's kind of a hit and miss.
Where do you think they get their product? Because, like you said, now if you're running that business, obviously you have to seek product somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll get it occasionally from customer trade-ins or whatever, but I would assume a lot of it has to come from the hunt. And since, like we had talked about, price chartings come into prominence, it's a lot harder to come by product fairly.
Yes.
You know, chances are you're not going to find Panic Restaurant. You're not going to make as big of a profit as you would, say, going to a flea market and finding it for $5 and now selling it for $500. Like, now you're probably going to have to pay about $300. You know what I mean? You're losing out on such a profit that it almost feels like it's not even a viable option to have this business anymore.
Well, that's why I said is that if you want to get into the video game market, and especially like retro gaming and stuff like that, you're doing it because you have a passion for it.
Right.
You're not doing it to get rich.
No.
Or you're already rich and you have the backing to do it.
Or maybe that's the case.
Because there are people it's a good hobby for them, but they've got the money because they're a doctor or something like that, so they don't have to worry as much about the overhead.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about, Paul.
That's why I almost feel like, in a weird way, that video game exchange, I can kind of see why they did what they did. It's like, with that kind of business, you have to find this product for as dirt cheap as it. It's not etiquette. By any means is it etiquette for that market. But I can see the mentality.
So I will say that as far as I've heard before, is that where people can get their like where they can get their goods for selling their product is that, yes, it will be a conglomeration of going to rummage sales, going to flea markets, looking on eBay and looking on online auctions for just lots of like 50 or 100 NES games or something like that, making sure, and they're going to have to sift through to make sure that 75% of that isn't just sports games that are just going to clog up their supply. But I think the difference is that, yes, maybe the Video Game Exchange, they did something that is just their way that they have to be able to keep their product going. But if that's the case, don't frickin' tweet it, and don't post it on Facebook that, look at what I found at St. Vinny's. Look, the St. Vinny's hunt, and you show all of these bins of stuff that you're going through. Like, don't
advertise.
Don't brag and advertise that you really cheated the system, because that's what's going to then cause people to get mad at you and say, no, that was a dick thing to do.
Like I said, it wasn't exactly the proper etiquette for that market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I can.
And I'm sorry, I've been in Video Game Exchange before. Well, obviously, we have been in Video Game Exchange before.
There.
The guy didn't need to do that. He didn't have to do that. He's got plenty of stuff. In fact, there was... I remember one of the very first times that we went in there, and half the shit wasn't even for sale. Inquired about a stack-up that was complete with with all the pieces, with the box. And I said, how much is the stack-up? He's like, well, it's not really for sale. I mean, you don't really see it too often with the pieces and the box. And if I sell it, I'm probably not going to get another one. Like, then why do you put it in the frickin' front of the store right by the cash register where everybody can see it if you don't want to sell it?
What a jackass.
And to be quite honest, too, which I didn't find out until I actually bought... The first copy of Stack Up I ever bought was card only. It was at Game Crazy for $7.99. And I realized that moment, that game is worthless by itself.
Oh yeah,
It is worthless. You can't do anything
it's like
with
buying
it.
the Super Scope 6 or the Menacer without the Menacer or the
Exactly.
Super Scope.
Exactly. You need Rob, and you need the pieces in order to get the most out of it. So when he says, "Oh, you rarely see the game with all the pieces," it's like, no, that's because you need to have the pieces for it.
We do have the pieces, right?
I understand that, but it's the point
No, I'm
of
saying,
fucking matter.
I'm asking you. We have the pieces, right?
Yes, we do.
Thank
yes, we
God.
do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
I was about to say.
No, we totally do.
Although,
We totally do.
I actually thinking about it nowadays with like the way 3D printing's come
I
up.
was actually thinking that.
I wonder
You could
if
probably make your own.
You could make replacement parts by 3D printing them.
That's not the same. Let's not get into that.
That's
whole
like getting
snafu.
in. That's like getting into repro shit. Now we're getting crazy with this 3D technology shit. This 3D printing. But
It's your fault you can't keep up with times, old man.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, why are you so old?
Well, it's funny because even with the repro, like the repro uprising, those games are still pretty much retaining their value. Even with the like Earthbound is still pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite as expensive as it used to be, but I mean, was that a result of the repro market? Not necessarily. Like Hagani, technically you could make a repro card of, and that game will still go for fucking $600 or $700.
No. It's like $475.
Maybe.
Look it up.
I'm gonna look it up, but that's actually, and it's interesting to me because it got me thinking about getting stock and stuff. So when I bought my Panzer Dragoon Saga, right, for $400 at that one of the classics, I swear to God that had to be the only copy we saw at the time.
That year, it actually
we
was.
really
Yeah.
didn't see that game at all.
No.
But now I've noticed over the past few years, that game has been coming out of the woodworks like crazy. Even Little Samson. Like, we never
course.
saw Little Samson. But now, all of a sudden, damn near every booth has a Little Samson.
And that's because when the prices get to a certain point, it's no different than stocks. Where when it gets to a certain point, so you bought it at this really low price, and you're like, I know this is a rare game, I'm going to hold on to it until it gets to a certain point, and then I'm going to sell it. And like a stock, you wait until it gets to a certain point, and then once it hits that point, then everybody is like, okay, now's the time, I got to sell it. But then what they don't realize that they're doing, they're inadvertently clogging the market with that game, and then nobody's going to sell it. And then because
price drops back down.
because they're not selling, they're like, okay, I couldn't get $1,200 for it, so I'm going to lower it to $1,100. Well, I can't even get $1,100 for it because everybody else is selling it. I'm going to put mine down $900, and then that's when you see that price in that dip in the price, because now there's too many in the market. And then once it starts to cool down, once people are like, okay, fine, it's $900, like, no, I'm going to wait until it goes back up again. Then they get pulled off of the market, and then all of a sudden people can't find them anymore, so therefore, well, now it's getting up to, like, I'm going to buy it for $1,300 because I can't find it anywhere else. And then people are going to see that, and then it starts that whole circle all over again.
Well, and then you sort of touched on it there, is it would not surprise me if there are some very unethical people who intentionally alter the market to make more of a profit.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody who just goes around and buys every copy.
Well, they'll purposely they'll get as many copies as they can, and they will sit on them and do it. And anytime they can find another copy, they will snatch it up just so it artificially raises the price.
It does, because you are artificially making a product scarce or something like that. I've actually heard stories where, because obviously with like Magic the Gathering, there was like a is it because they grade the condition of cards,
Sort of like comics and stuff.
yeah, like comics and stuff. And there was a Gem Mint 10, which is like the best condition card it could be, and it was Black Lotus, and it sold for like $100 and some odd thousand.
How does something get a Gem Mint 10 or whatever?
Basically, it's
There's appraisers for
there's
those
appraisers.
markets.
Yeah, there's appraisers who do. Yeah, but no, I get
How
what you're
is
saying.
that possible?
It's almost as if it comes right off of the assembly line and gets put
straight into a sealed thing.
Into a
It
sealed
basically
case.
got pulled from a pack, someone put it into a hard case and left it.
And that's
But
that's
how?
literally-
Why would you put it in a case? Like, because I would assume when you bought the Magic, like the booster pack that had the Black Lotus in it,
Well,
you didn't realize at the time because
There
that
were
was
actually
what.
people back then, even when I first started playing Magic,
They were buying them just for those Black Lotuses.
Well, not just that. They had 2 sets. They had a complete set,
Right.
and then they had a play set.
We did it with Pokemon, kind of.
Yep.
So, like, there were people that had cards that came out that they never touched because they were part of I have this entire set.
Yeah. But anyways...
And that's where those ones, the high-grade ones, come from.
But anyways...
I mean, granted, you have the temptation to use shit like that would be...
The story of the Black Lotus is similar in that Nintendo that sold... The Nintendo lot that sold for $15,000. So what I had heard is that now because there's so much money in Magic cards, is that basically these high dollar investors, like multi-million dollar like people who have millions of dollars, they're buying up all of the original sets like Alpha and Beta because they say, well, we're going to take them all off the market. We're going to collect everything that we can so that now people have to turn to later sets, and then once they're going to a later set, we'll then start selling off what we have because they're going to go at a premium because people can't find them anymore. And it's the same thing with why Pokemon cards, like the base box, why it continues to go up in price if you find an unopened box is because the second you open up that box and you open up all those packs of cards, that's one less sealed box that's out there.
Right.
So they're just not out there anymore because they're not making them anymore.
But I feel like the idea with that Black Lotus is the only people who would even spend that money would be investors. It's not clearly anybody who's going to play a game.
Nope.
You know, it's no one that it's not somebody that has to keep up with the sets to play standard or whatever.
But guess what? As long as Magic keeps going and as long as Magic is still the most popular of the trading card games that are out there still, there's always going to be a market for that card.
Well, and then there are certain collectors that do it for, like, that sort of, like, prestige of, oh, look what I have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I suppose I do
it's
that.
The bragging rights.
I do that with my RPG collections.
Well, yeah.
But I actually play them.
Yeah, and we do
well,
that.
but
And we
see,
do that
there's also
with video
there is a
games.
slight difference between the two because the value of yours, like RPG, like because they're a digital thing, they won't degrade the same way a card will.
Right.
So you like yours, like you could have those games, and 20 years from now, like if they still you don't scratch them to hell and stuff like that, they'll still have value unless if like the market just decides they're no longer.
Yeah.
Whereas like a card, say I have it and I play and I keep playing Magic and I'm using that card. Well, that card 20 years,
scuffs and
20 years from now is gonna look like shit. I mean, have you seen like 20-year-old playing cards from magicians and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
They're garbage. They become like flimsy little like coasters at that point.
They're like sticky too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's card stock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like they wear out at different rates, so like their values adjust.
Yep.
I wonder how much like a scuffed up Black Lotus would even be worth. Like one that's just not in super pristine condition.
Couple thousand, I'm guessing.
But I mean, even that, it's still
I'd say
ridiculous.
low end, couple hundred.
Well, either way, but I'm just saying though, it's like it's.
I mean, as
there
long
are
as
ways-
it's not like creased up the middle or chunk missing out.
There
Like
are-
somebody bent it in half
But
and made
there
a
are
hot dog
ways-
out of it.
Or put it on their bike, like for a spoke.
But there are ways that people can artificially
Right.
create the market for something, because if you take and I've actually had this idea before of like taking something that's so not rare or something like that, or people don't consider rare, and just trying to buy up every piece of it that I can, so that I'm
One of
like,
those
well,
dollar games.
if somebody no, because I was actually thinking about this because so
First of all, it's got to be something people want.
so here's the thing.
Yeah, but see, that's
So-
the thing is, if you can influence the market to where that starts disappearing, people are going to have a different perception of it.
Back when I was collecting Star Wars stuff, there was one figure in particular that I absolutely loved because I loved what they did with it. It was a 2002 Toy Fair, like the New York Toy Fair exclusive that they gave away, or you could buy it there. But it was like a silver finished Darth Vader. And he was holding the lightsaber, and the lightsaber actually even protruded out of the bubble. They put a hole in the bubble so that the lightsaber could come out.
Oh, cool.
It's a really smooth looking figure. That figure, when it first came out, was around like $200, and it peaked probably at around $325 to $350. Well, I knew, I was like, that's way too expensive. I'm never going to own this in my lifetime, like, because I'm not going to spend that much money on it. I ended up years later, and I'm talking like 10, 15 years later. No, more like 10 years later. I realized, I'm like, you know what? Because I was out of Star Wars, and I'm like, you know what? The collecting market just isn't what it used to be. I wonder if that figure is still as expensive as it was. Well, guess what? It wasn't. It was down to like $40 or $50 on average. Some were even going as low as like $30. I'm like, back in the day, like, this was like the holy grail of like the modern Star Wars figures. So then I started thinking, well, you know what? Why don't I just, like, at $50 a pop, why don't I just buy every one that I see? Because then eventually people are going to be like, well, where the hell did that figure go? And then every once in a while you put one on there, and then all of a sudden watch it go for $300, $400, or $500.
I suppose.
So
I mean, that's, to be honest, that's how the entire stock market works anyways. Pure speculation based on how can I alter people's perceptions of value.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the shadiest shit I've ever heard in my life.
I've never done it before.
No, I know
Don't
that.
get me wrong, but it's extremely shady.
How do you think that's the only reason capitalism stays afloat?
It's the worst idea ever.
Yes, it is.
That'd be like taking a game like The Immortal.
Yeah.
And buying up every... What's to stop someone from just destroying every copy?
And that is another way people actually influence stuff is... If other copies are not worth, like, don't have the same value, they're damaged or they're not, like, complete, you alter the price of them that way, too.
Yeah,
so you can, like, literally remove stuff from circulation to jack up prices.
But remember, though, is that there's more to it than just taking something out of the market. The Immortal, there was a lot of copies of that. Granted, maybe you can get your hands on every single one of them, but there was a lot of copies. But two... What does a person want more? Do they want the Immortal, or do they want the Legend of Zelda?
Right.
They want the Legend of Zelda. They don't want that. So as long as you may have the supply, but as long as there's no demand for it, you're still not going to get anything, even if you artificially create that market for it.
Someone wanting the whole collection's gonna pay for it.
Well, I mean, there's always ways to alter things like that, but
it seems like such a risky piece of shit.
Yeah,
it's super risky.
The time and the risk, like the risk reward, is probably not worth it.
It's not. Yeah, the return on investment is probably so low that it's really not worth the time that you would be putting into it.
But that's kind of what like that whole thing with like Panzer Dragoon Saga and Little Samson kind of reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like where did these come from when these were $300?
It's because it hit that quote-unquote sweet spot where everybody's like, all right, now's the time. They think it's at the top of the hill, so now I gotta sell it, I gotta get rid of it so that I can maximize my profits.
Well, the other thing is, like I said before, is, okay, I have this game, and they have another game I want that's starting to go up in price. Like Magic Knight Ray Earth, if it was one you were looking for.
Fuck you right now.
And you had like a second copy of something that's like equal value, and you trade that, and all of a sudden, like, there's more copies of that one now and less of the other one.
Yeah. But it's funny to me because... What was I going to say? You were right, by the way. Hagani, $450.
Oh.
Yeah, you were right. $450. No, Magic Knight Ray Earth now, $450.
Oh, you looked it up? Damn it, I
sure did.
I was going to look it up just to mess with you.
No, I mean, like, a good example is, remember how hard it was for us to find Xenosaga? Or the .hack GU.
Well, Xenosaga was a hard one to find because that was a GameStop exclusive.
It was.
But then when it magically resurfaced...
Xenosaga? No,
I'm sorry, I'm thinking Xenoblade Chronicles.
Xenosaga, the PS2...
Yeah, you're right.
Remember, when we were looking for that in .hack GU, we couldn't find them anywhere.
Shin Megami Nocturne.
And then look what happened. As soon as we ended up going, we got them all. 6 months later, all of a sudden we were seeing them everywhere?
You could go to 2 stores and complete the whole 4-game run.
I remember
or 3-game run or whatever.
Almost everywhere we went, we used to see Nocturne.
Yeah.
But it was like $40, $50, and then all of a sudden it's like...
It disappeared, and they were super expensive. And
and now they're like a 10, 15.
And now they're
complete.
$15 because everybody, it hit that point where they're like, all right, we got to sell it, and now you flooded the market. And so in people's brashness to be greedy, to try to maximize their profits, they literally lose everything because now you've flooded the market.
And that's how, like, collector bubbles burst.
Exactly.
Because it's, like, again, it's all perception. If the entire group agrees that X product has a value of Y, and, like, we're all just trying to achieve that, the moment we all say, okay, let's all get out and back away and get, like, unload those copies, well, it's no longer worth Y because there are now double the number of copies.
That's why I love the history of comic books and comic book speculation, where the bubble burst in the mid '90s.
Death of Superman?
With the death of Superman.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Everybody thought that with the death of Superman, this is going to be a monumental issue. People were lining down the street because they wanted because they wanted that copy, because if they could buy like 10 copies of that, then guess what? One day those are going to be worth so much money. I'm going to have a nest egg and I'm going to put my kids through college. And what they didn't remember, what they didn't know, or what they failed to see is that Action Comics #1 at the time had gone for like $100,000. Action Comics #1 came out in 1939 when comics were disposable and they were meant to be read and then thrown away. And what was the first thing that went during World War II to help the war efforts? People donated paper that they didn't want. They donated supplies. They threw away a lot of copies of that comic book, so there's just not that many issues of it. Well, the comic book companies knew that, hey, this is a monumental thing. People are wanting this. Guess what? We're going to publish probably like a limited amount of them. And by limited, we mean until we run out of the limit, we're gonna sell them.
Well, or they do it the other way: is okay. This is a monumental issue.
Yeah.
Let's do 12 different variant covers.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? Now that comic is no longer that collectible because there are 12 fucking different covers.
You can't make a collectible out of something if you call it collectible and you're intending it to be collectible.
Yeah.
Usually the collectibles are something that people want from their childhood that they never would have assumed would ever have been collectible at some point. And so when people try to sell their copies of Death of Superman, they're like, "Well, wait a minute. Why am I not getting hundreds of thousands of dollars?" Well, it's because everybody who wanted one got a copy, and everybody who wanted to sell one is now selling it, and nobody can sell it because you flooded the market with it.
It's a real fickle market.
Oh God, it's the whole speculator bubble and all of that stuff. I find it so fascinating.
Well, it's funny because I feel like with retro collecting, we're still in. I feel like it comes in waves, and we haven't even hit the crest yet.
No.
Of that first wave, because you got to remember, retro collecting. This is the first time in our history that retro collecting of video games has been a thing. Because, I mean, Atari's not collectible.
No,
and Coleco's not collectible, and television's not collectible. Nintendo is.
Yeah.
We grew up in the advent of video game as an industry. Of video games as an industry, and I think we're just now starting to hit the top of the wave. So it's like it's almost hard to say how this is going to play out if Little Samson would ever be a $50 title, because we're still climbing that first mountain. You know what I mean?
And another issue with that is it'll be very generational based.
Oh, absolutely.
Because those that are younger than us, when they get to like our age currently, they're not going to be collecting the NES stuff. They're going to be collecting PS1, PS2, and then because those are already considered retro at this point.
Yes,
they're how many console generations behind? Like, those are part of the retro market. Not to mention all the handheld games.
Like, I guess everybody's definition of what retro is different. But to me, my definition is that as long as you cannot get a game through the mainstream distribution, like you can't just go to Target and get a PS3 game anymore.
You can't go on the PSN and get Saga Frontier.
So to me, I would even consider PS3 is now at this point it's retro.
Well, I think I'd say 2 generations or more back is what I would consider
so PS2 backwards.
I honestly think that everybody's right. I mean, in their own way.
Well, and that's the biggest problem is there is no defined mark of this is what makes retro.
Right.
Retro just literally means old.
It's an established definition that really doesn't have like a strong basis.
But see, that's the thing.
90s is considered retro now.
And that's the problem. Like, it's not really. It's an established, but it's not established. That's the problem.
Commonly accepted, but never proven.
Yeah, but it's a common vernacular, but it's not an actual hard line.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no hard line. There's no way to say it. I mean,
because if you'd go to like our grandparents and ask them what would be retro for them.
A stick in a hoop!
It's something completely different than what would be retro for even for our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So,
A game
like,
of jacks. Do you guys even know how to play the actual game
you
of
bounce
jacks?
it.
Of course they
Gather,
do.
couch the
And
ball.
who was it? Somebody had said that. I swear to God.
That's why
maybe
you
it
want
was
to get the good super bouncer.
maybe it was a stand-up comedy, but they said basically we are now in the day and age where kids do not even know what jacks are anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, I grew up on jacks. Like, you throw the
Marbles.
ball, you try to scoop them all up, and you got to catch the ball. Yep.
How many
marbles.
How many bags of marbles do you see for sale?
You know what? No.
That aren't in fish tanks.
You want to go
The
real
over.
retro? Fucking Pogs.
Pogs, baby!
Hogs are coming back!
And we're not talking about the porn version Pogs.
What?
P-A-W-G-S. It's in porn.
Fat-ass white girls?
Pogs. Yeah, kind of.
P-H-A...
P-A-W-G-S. They're called Pogs.
What's a pog?
P-A-W-G-S.
Yeah, what's a pog?
I don't
It's a
even
fat-ass
know.
white girl.
Pretty much. A thicker
Fat-ass
honey.
white girl.
But it's P-H-A-T.
Oh,
Fat
but they
ass.
spell it P-H-O, so fat-ass white girl. Wow.
Pogs, yeah.
Okay.
We're not talking about those Pogs. We're talking about Pogs with the metal slammers that you had to slam onto the stack, and then
That's
everything
right.
you turned over, you got for
Boom,
keepsies.
it was yours for keepsies.
Boom! It went out faster than Pogs. That was solid for like 6 months.
It literally, I don't even think it made it 6 months. It was like 3 months.
Tech decks
It was-
lasted longer than
Oh
Pogs.
my fucking God, the tech decks.
And then when they tried to make the tech
I
type, the
hated
bikes,
those things.
Come on, you guys.
Oh, they did the
They
bikes.
did
did.
the
I remember
BMX.
the figure thing.
They did the BMX bike version too.
Guys,
I
this
just-
isn't the nostalgia
I
episode.
just remember in middle
But it's
school,
retro.
kids who would be playing like, oh, watch this, I could do an ollie. And they're like doing it with the thing, and I'm
Hold
just
on a
like,
second.
I'm
Hold on a
looking-
second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Or they're trying to do a kickflip, and they're like, "Oh, just wait, I got it. No, I get it." And I'm just
Hang on a
like,
second.
I'm like,
I could skate better with my fingers than I could
can
on a
you
real board.
can you do that on a real skateboard? No, I didn't fucking think so.
Yeah, I could do it Tony Hawk though. That makes me awesome.
I could do the 900! Over 900! A 1080.
Oh God, a 1080.
Or would it be
1080 is no more.
1060. No, it'd be a 12. I don't know. It's fucking.
Yeah.
No, there was a game called 1080.
Yeah, it would be 1080 because 900 and then add
Another
180.
180.
It's yeah,
And then
1080.
1440.
Anyways,
But anyway, so to go back to what you were saying about how the next generation's retro, I don't think they're necessarily going to hit a retro bubble like we are.
Well,
Because how accessible are those games always going to be?
but see, that's not necessarily like. But the big problem is too, like, okay, so there are games like PS2, original Xbox that we adore. Guess what games you can't get digital?
Yeah.
It's all the ones we liked.
But that's exactly what you just said. Digital. Guess where the next generation of
That
consoles is going?
yeah.
Purely digital. There's no product anymore.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to buy physical, which means they're not going to hit a retro nostalgia that we have and the bubble we're currently in.
It might
Not
not,
the
be the
same-
same,
not
but it
the
will
same
still be
kind.
there.
not the
I
same.
don't think
kind.
so.
It's an
because
always shifting thing, guys. That's part of the thing.
even when like PS5, PS6, or whatever, if they still stick
Yeah.
with that theme, go another. I mean, how old's the Nintendo now?
It was 1985, so it's like 34 years old.
Shift another 40 years past the PS5, you're not going to find those games at all.
No.
Nobody's going to be holding on to a PS5 for 40 years.
You don't know
And
that though.
you don't even know if it'll plug into the TVs anymore.
well,
you know
your
what I
NES
mean?
won't.
It still does. There's still a cable jack
There are
on there.
TVs that don't have those anymore.
Yeah,
though.
there are TVs that don't have the
My
coax
4K
cable.
TV
Yeah.
does not have the input for that stuff anymore.
But they also make the Retron systems, which have updated
But that's
things.
the thing is that will be the new retro is these all-in-one systems.
But I still don't think that's going to quite encapsulate the kind of retro
No, I
collecting
don't-
that we have.
But see, that's the thing is retro collection will be different for
but-
every
yeah,
generation.
and that's- I
there
was
is
just
no
about-
defined thing. For
I was just about to say
that's
that.
the biggest problem
For
with
us,
it.
it was video games. For somebody else, okay, so take this. So, pop figures.
Pop figures. Yeah.
You see them all over the fucking
There's
place.
literally thousands.
There are literally thousands of them. I thought for sure that these things were the next Beanie Babies because they were gonna go out so fast and be done. They seem to be chugging along. They seem to be doing fine.
That's because they can make them out of anything.
Exactly. But I have a feeling that come 15, 20 years, well, you remember that 6-year-old who really wanted that pop figure that he couldn't get, and then he couldn't find it in stores anymore. Well, actually 10 years old, because then he's got the foresight to actually try to find it. Anyways, he can't find that figure, so 20 years from now, it's like, hey, he's got the disposable income. It's like, hey, you know what? I remember when I couldn't find that figure. I want it now. And so he goes out, he buys it, and now all of a sudden, pops are even more of a commodity than they are now. So I mean, it's a different collection for different people. Us, yes, I would.
I'm
say
talking purely video games though, because you're still talking about a physical product. I'm talking if these games are going to start going the direction of digital, there's nothing to collect anymore.
No, there's not.
And like I said, nobody's going to collect the entire library on one PS6 and wait 30 years and then sell it on eBay or whatever the big conglomerate is for selling things for $20,000.
No, sure.
That has everything on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen. So it's
No,
I don't think collecting in the future is going to be like the collecting we have now.
Like I said, it'll shift because at that point, collecting now is less about the hardware and more about the games.
Right.
So, and then in the future, it might shift where it's less about the games and more about the nostalgic hardware.
Actually,
so somebody's going to go out and buy 6 PS6s?
Actually, no.
That doesn't make any sense.
Dude, go look at those people who have arcades in their basement.
Yes.
But that's different. That's a different physical product. Every product is different.
No, because now that's where I think that it could shift to. Because now they do those arcade 1-up machines and stuff like that. People collect those. It's a board, but it's also a full-size cabinet.
They're not full-size, actually.
Well, not full-size. They're like a 4-foot. It's 4-foot. It's actually... It's
there's a name for it.
Yeah, it's like a shorty machine or something like that.
Yeah, they're not
a coffee table machine.
No, because they're bigger. They stand up to like my chin.
Yeah,
they're like it's not a bar one either. Is it a bar machine?
No,
those are the ones that sit on top of the bar.
Yeah. That's like a slot machine.
These are I know. They're like 4 feet tall.
But yeah, they're 4 feet tall. You can actually get a riser for them so that
makes them like 5 foot tall.
Yeah, they'll actually
sell them at Costco.
Oh, do they really?
Oh yeah,
GameStop sells them.
Yeah.
But with those things, so people may not be collecting video games from the PS6. Well, retro companies are still going to be producing like those arcade machines, and we don't even know what the next thing is that they can possibly go back to that's retro. Maybe they're going to start doing all of these different like the mini systems, like the Genesis is going to keep on going, or like then you're going to have like the
PS2 classic,
the PS2 classic, the PS3 classic. You could do all these different things, and then people are going to then buy those and collect those, and then that's what's going to be traded. But I mean, I don't think it's not going to be at the scale that it is now.
No, like I said,
truly is not.
That's why I'm saying the collecting aspect of it is going to be so vastly different that I don't think it's going to quite hit the kind of idea that we're in right now.
But see, you're also looking at the collecting of the next thing as an outsider as opposed to the collecting of the stuff you do now as an insider. Do you view collecting comics the same way you view collecting like retro games?
Absolutely.
I do.
But see, most people don't. They view them as two very different types of collections.
I don't see how it's any different. Because you're still collecting something like physical. Yeah, you know what I mean?
How often of your collection of comics, Paul, of like the important ones, do you ever touch?
I mean, I have them in bags and boards, but every comic, regardless of whether it is the most expensive comic I own or the cheapest comic I own, I've read them at least one time.
Now compare them to the rarest NES games. How many times have you touched the two of them in comparison?
I've probably played the games a lot more.
Exactly.
But the games are a lot more durable.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like the type of collecting will shift. You can't okay, what about collecting Beanie Babies? Do you view it the same way?
Yeah, absolutely.
But like
to somebody.
Well, I'm saying that's the thing is you're viewing it like it's something you're not interested in, so you are not going to view it in the same light as the stuff you like to collect.
But I'm going on the fact that you have something to collect.
You're just going off of video games and you have something to collect.
Because in the future, if this market's going pure digital, you're no longer collecting one thing. You know what I mean? You're not going to a convention to find a Little Samson. You're not going to a convention to find this or these. It's now everything. There is nothing to find anymore. Even with these arcade cabinets, are you telling me they're going to come in the future of games? Like, let's say, are we going to see a Borderlands 3 machine come out?
It's possible.
I find that highly, highly unlikely.
See, I don't, but because like, as technology like that gets more impressive to compact shit,
it'll be a ROM.
So here's.
But it's still a physical thing you're collecting.
I think you're really sticking on this whole gung ho, like the future is like there's no video games anymore.
No, there's video games, but I don't think the collecting aspect of what we're in now is ever going to be.
We're already establishing that that's
done again.
That's not going to be done again. I don't think it's going to be replicated. In the future, I mean, you've got game companies like Limited Run who specialize in making retro-type games in the retro-type fashion where it comes in a cartridge, in a box, with an instruction booklet. There's always going to be a market for that, I think, and there's going to be people who make these retro games. Yes, it's not going to be like what we have now, but it's still always going to be there. You make it sound like it's not going to be there anymore.
But my point is, yes, they can make these. What are you going to play it on? If everything's going pure digital, there's no slot for a cartridge. There's nothing for a Blu-ray. What is Limited Run going to print physically to give you?
Then the next step would be to print off, to make their own system, their own version of that system.
Because that's worked so well for companies lately.
Well, there's been a lot of...
How's that Ouya doing?
Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
But that's...
The Atari VCS.
But that's kind of the way I think of it.
But that's the biggest problem, again, is you're still comparing apples and oranges, and you're expecting one type of collection to expand over all forms of collecting, and it does not work.
But I feel like you guys are trying to turn oranges into apples.
No, I'm just saying I don't want. I'm just trying to say I don't want oranges in my apple basket.
So with the PlayStation 5, have they announced that it's not going to have a disc drive?
I honestly don't know. Isn't everything still very preliminary with next gen?
Well, they'll still. My guess is still use Blu-ray. For you still have like the first 50 to 100 gig on a disc.
And I'm pretty sure they announced backwards compatibility was a thing.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying, is that at least for right now, there's not a system that has no slot because it's
Not yet.
Not yet.
But 40 years in the future,
maybe.
But it might shift at that point too. It can also shift to micro SD style or like Switch style carts where it's just a smaller base with just a tiny little thing and you're good to go. Or it's all going to be this.
Your phone?
Yeah, because the rate at which the technology improves. It's exponential growth. Like, it's going to just keep getting better and better. I mean, look at how powerful my phone is compared to even like a PS3 and stuff like that.
Right, and I understand that. But it goes back to my point, what are you going to collect? The next generation of collectors, what are they going to collect that's going to be like what we have? There isn't. As far as video games are concerned, that's what I'm trying to say.
I still think
we're agreeing with you.
I still think
it doesn't sound like
we are agreeing with you that it will never be the same. What more do you want?
It won't be the same, but it's still going to exist. That's the thing. It's going to be different.
It may still exist in one form or another, but you're right. We are conceding to you right now. What do you want from me? I don't think it will exist at all. Video games are going to be disposable like the comics in the 30s. Play it and forget it.
You mean they're not like
a meal?
You mean they're not like that?
I eat it, I poop it, and forget it. I eat it, I poop it. Next game.
You mean they're not already like that?
God,
I think what's going to happen is you're going to put it into your mouth.
It's
going to be downloaded into your head so that you can play that game whenever you want. You poop it out, and then you get the next one because you have the space.
Flush down the toilet. Look at all these games. Fuck, I climbed it.
Got an SD slot on my tongue.
Oh, god.
Well, good. I'm glad I got my point across.
Well, oh my god, you kept circling around it. I'm like, I think that's where the disconnect was coming from. I'm like, we're admitting, you're right, it's not going to be the same. And then we try to jump forward and you're like, no, you're not getting what I'm saying. It's not going to be the same.
It felt like you guys were trying to tell me that yes, they're going to.
Oh,
There will always be some form of retro collection. The only thing is, it will be a different form. That's the only thing.
It'll be a different form. It will never be like this. It's going to be something
But
else.
then collecting these is not the same as collecting comics. It's not the same as collecting Beanie Babies or action figures.
And that's where I disagree. I feel like collecting now is you can collect anything, but how do you collect something you can't actually hold?
So, yes, because now you're talking about like comic books where they're going digital too. You can't, but I guarantee you, there is always going to be something to collect. I guarantee you there will always be something.
You never know. A small hard drive might be worth millions someday.
A small hard drive.
Because of what's on it. Because if the physical medium is gone, the data still has value.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree, it doesn't like that. Because like your whole thing is, okay, yeah, these chips will stop working at some point.
I don't believe you.
I object.
Bullshit. Have you tried running a computer from like the late 70s?
Still works.
They do not.
How do you think George R.R. Martin writes the rest of his stories?
My parents' Tandy 1000 still works.
His is in the 80s. The older chipsets, they actually start to degrade due to the electricity going through them.
Yep,
So at some point in the future, even these carts will not work.
If they haven't died in 35 years, they're never dying.
Not in my lifetime, they're not.
No, I know. Yeah, there will come a time where these will just eventually stop.
Well, and then there's the other thing is like...
I'm hoping we're dead by then.
That's what I'm hoping
too. There'll come a point where you're not going to get replacement parts for your system either.
But that's where these cartridges live on, is through the fact that they're making like the Retrons and the Polymegas even now that are going to come out.
But even shifting to like say everything does go pure digital. At some point, on the company end, they're not going to want to host the servers for this stuff anymore.
Exactly.
So the people that have the collections digitally, just say okay, I have a collection of the entire NES library on a thumb drive. Now, let's say something happens and it gets to the point where NES collections no longer work. My digital collection will be worth value because there will be people who want that information.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, that type, it will shift from less of a tangible value to a more of an abstract value.
Actually, repros might save the idea of retro collecting.
And that's where, repros, I think it will get to the point where modern systems will have a drive, because there'll be more of a PC, directly more of just it's a PC flat out.
I don't know if it'll necessarily be PC, but you had kind of said that eventually there's going to be a generation that don't give a fuck about NES games anymore.
Yeah.
So it's but I feel like you never know. There might be.
Well, and that's the idea that information has value. So at some point, digital information will become a currency.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is that when, to kind of piggyback on your point of when the server shut down, then the people who have already downloaded that information, it's on their
PT.
That's PT. Literally what I just looked up.
Yeah.
Look at PT. That the systems still sell for $400 is what they're trying to get for it, because you can't get that game anymore, and this is your only chance to get it now.
I will agree with you. The games that will be completely valueless are the ones that require online authentication or multiplayer only.
Mm-hmm. Which I feel
those games will fuck everything over. They will be useless.
Once everything goes digital anyway, I feel like that's kind of the direction it's going. You're going to need some sort of connection, and once that server's gone, those games no longer exist.
I think there will still be the need until the world gets much, much better internet. There are places in the U.S. that aren't much better than dial-up at this point still.
Right.
So until the entire world is on fiber optic and higher internet speeds, that's never going to be an issue.
No.
And because agreed, that probably won't be for quite some time. So, I mean, there will always be something that will change, even if it's not a direct, like supported market, there will be some sort of aftermarket for it. Look at the prevalency of pirating that happened when PC games started putting in DRMs.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It's a digital rights management, so it's basically an anti-cheat and an anti-theft thing.
Oh, kind of like how the PS3 and the Vita wouldn't allow you to stream shit.
Yeah,
sort of
or
like
look at like
DCI.
Diablo 3, where
Yeah.
on the PC, it requires you to be connected to their server at all times.
Right.
Whereas on like PS4 and stuff like that, you can play offline with no connection required.
Mm-hmm.
So when games started pushing, like companies started and publishers started pushing DRMs, the amount of pirating for games on PC skyrocketed because they fucked with how well games played.
Right.
So people found ways of pirating them, removing them, and distributing them for free just to spite these companies. So at some point it might shift over to a secondhand, almost like black market of, I'm trading this illegally to like other people because that's how we get what we want.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I don't know, man. The future's a scary place.
I was gonna say, at this point, like, and that's why I refuse to say that there's going to be, like, nothing to collect, or there's gonna be no type of physical media or video games, because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never,
I mean,
like, things that are
For
out...
fuck's sake, people collect corpses.
Well, it's more so the fact that
Taxidermy, dude.
there's
yeah.
taxidermy
I didn't
things, I
even think about
suppose.
that.
But there are ones for people too.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, just a little.
But it's just, I mean, there are things out now that I never would have dreamed about as
Collecting,
a
yeah.
kid.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have dreamed about or thought about it. As a kid, pop figures, never would have ever thought about that.
I never even thought of
when
hanging on to my X-Men figures.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
even that.
Because
Yeah.
I didn't think they would, like, when you're that age, you don't have the foresight to say, yeah, this will have some amount of value to me.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, some people did if they bought a play set and a collection set.
Well, some people
Yeah.
did, but see, some people are also fucking weird. So
Yeah.
we don't count those people among the normals.
I don't know. That's why part of me thinks that any of the next gen systems going pure digital, I honestly can't see that happening. I for some
Not
reason
yet.
I
Not yet.
don't think that would happen.
I think going pure digital, like I said, it's not going to be until everyone is on fiber
No,
or better.
It's, yeah.
Because I mean,
It'll basically be everyone is running on, or like it'd be like Ghost in the Shell, where literally everyone's connected to the internet basically 24/7, whether they have a device or not.
because didn't Steam come out with a console, a Steam box,
Yeah, they did. Well,
which
they were
was
basically
pretty much just a medium to stream.
they were
Steam games on your
just like a
television,
low
right?
end PC that you could just stream stuff
Yeah.
from their servers.
But
yeah.
kind of like the Ouya.
Yeah.
That thing failed.
Yes. It
Horrible.
Well, Google Stadia is going to be doing one,
Yeah,
and from the
Stadia's going to be a streaming
Yeah.
console. I really don't think that's going to last, even though there are games that are
Well-
exclusively for it.
yeah.
And they're top
then again-
notch. I mean, Square Enix is making a game exclusively for the Stadia.
Then
But
again,
I don't think that'll last.
most people also looked at WoW and said it wouldn't last, and look at how long that's been going. It's gotten
Yeah.
to the point where they're rerunning WoW Classic now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are
Wow.
bringing.
GoldenEye.
I mean, so like, it's one of those things where it just gets to the point where some people are going to always clamor for something that was older.
So,
True.
so fun fact is I used to listen to a podcast called the Retro Gaming Roundup, and one of their hosts was his name was SoCal Mike, and it was actually Mike Kennedy, who was the one who started the whole Coleco Chameleon
Oh, okay.
thing. There was an episode on there where he kept talking about the Ouya, and he couldn't believe how much funding they had gotten. It was like GoFundMe, and it had pulled in like millions of dollars.
Oh,
like
yeah.
3.5 million or whatever it was. But he kept talking about like, well, we'll never be like the Ouya or this, and that's basically what drove him to want to create something like the Coleco Chameleon, because he wanted to, I guess, capture lightning in a bottle twice. And so he wanted to have like a what is that called, the crowdfunding, like
Kickstarter,
like a Kickstarter
GoFundMe,
for it, yeah,
whatever you
and
want.
GoFundMe, and he wanted to get millions of dollars for it, and obviously he didn't. And we got the Coleco Chameleon, well, somewhat. It was just a shell of a system with the Super Nintendo Mini crammed into it. So, but you have the Ouya, or you have the Ouya to thank. Wait, The Coleco Chameleon to thank for the other way around.
Holy shit!
I'm losing it.
You're oohing all over
I
this
am
thing.
oohing.
I think part of the problem too is like weird ones like that don't have brand recognition, whereas say like if Sony and Microsoft were to say this is the way we want to go, there'd be less people fighting it because of the name.
Well, I mean, honestly,
Maybe.
In this day and age, it's almost impossible to launch a system.
A system. Oh,
Unless
yeah,
you're one of the big
totally,
three,
yeah.
it's not happening.
No, it's not.
Because isn't Atari pumping out a system now? I thought they were.
They were supposed to. There hasn't been any news on that for
I thought
literally.
that was just a relaunch of like the 5200.
Huh? No, we're talking about the Atari VCS. That was like it was the slick looking black box that was supposed to be like online only, and it was supposed to be
I thought they were
streaming
doing like their mini version.
No, not the mini. No, not the mini version. No, this was something completely different.
Oh, okay.
That it got this whole crowdfunding, it got all the support, and everybody was like, "Nope, it's going to be the Coleco Chameleon all over again." Then they.
Well, and see, that's part of that too. Is okay. People saw how the other one failed funding wise.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to fund it, thinking that it wasn't going to reach the goal anyways. So less people backed it up then.
So Atari VCS actually had more backing.
Oh, did it?
It had more backing.
Okay. So but see, that's normally the way the speculation goes.
Exactly. It had more backing. It succeeded in its backing goal. And then what they did was they had no information on the system. They had no updates for like 6 to 9 months.
So people started pulling their
Then
money.
people started wondering, like, hey, what's going on? Because we just got the wool pulled over our eyes with the Coleco Chameleon. What's going on? Well, then they showed a picture of the Atari VCS. And I'm not going to lie, whatever that thing was that they had, it was slick looking. It looked really freaking cool.
Was it just like a computer drawn graphic, or was it
It was
physical?
No, it was an actual physical thing. However, if you ask me, was there guts inside of it? Probably not. It was probably just a shell again, but it looked really freaking cool. And so then you had all of these like little updates every like 3 to 6 months, and now in the last like year and a half, there has not been any information whatsoever on that thing. And I'm telling you, from the start, I was like, this is not. It's not going to happen, because what people don't realize is all of the money. They really think that with $3 to $5 million, they can create and launch a system of their own
and succeed.
You cannot do that. That is not economically feasible.
No.
These big three spend like tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, on the systems.
So the VCS was at E3 this year.
BS.
It was. They got an update from July of this year.
Oh, sure they do.
So
Now I sound
How's
like
that
a
humble pie taste?
So I guess it's still going. They're just quiet, and it's pissing people off.
Oh,
Well, it's probably
that might be
taking
what it is.
It's
then.
probably
Okay.
taking longer than they might have anticipated.
That my guess is
I still.
software development, because like look at what happened with what was it, the PlayStation Mini, where they just used some shitty emulator in it.
Oof.
So maybe that's what they were trying to avoid happening with this one.
Yeah, but
So they're trying to write their own like shit, and they're sucking at it.
I am still a firm believer that you cannot fund an entire system and
I don't.
release a system on 3 to 5 million. It just can't be done.
I'll be perfectly honest. The only thing that I feel kind of could succeed in launching a console, Sega. How much
Sega can
brand
come back.
recognition
Yeah.
does Sega still have?
That's it.
How
That's
many
why.
years
It does.
out of the race? I feel like Sega could say, hey, guess what, guys? E3 next year, boom, we're releasing another fucking
knows?
console.
Maybe
Yeah.
if the Sonic movie does well enough.
I
Well,
mean, how much are we
I'm not-
begging for Phantasy Star in the West?
I'm not gonna lie. The Genesis Mini comes out next week.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of like
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of positive
The
reviews
game list
about
isn't
that
too
thing.
bad for that one.
Yeah. They said that
So-
it was done really well, and people are very impressed with it. So, you know what? Maybe, depending on how well it sells, maybe this is their chance to get back into the
I mean,
video
or
game
who
market.
knows? Maybe some of the smaller companies that are now gone like that all band together under some other like conglomerate logo and start pushing shit out.
I mean, just imagine you have. I mean, Genesis has such a devout following. Saturn,
I mean,
Dreamcast, they're all like
Sega's still pumping Sonic out.
Oh yeah, are you kidding? They're still doing Phantasy Star shit over in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Sega is still a household name, even though they haven't been around since the Dreamcast. In what? When was the Dreamcast? When did
99.
that end?
Well, it came out in 99. I believe it died in 2001.
So, I mean,
PS2 era, yeah.
18 years after the fact, and people still know who Sega is?
Oh, yeah.
And still, like, I mean, look, they could have working designs for some reason, come back from the ashes and create a game. Half of the working designs games are all triple-digit games. You know what I mean? To see a working designs game now, I feel like Sega would be the only company that could launch a console and relatively succeed. Would they shoot themselves in the dick again? Probably.
Well,
but
that wasn't really their... That was...
Sega reaching for some technology that just wasn't quite available.
No, that was internal stuff, because honestly, Sega of Japan and Sega of America could never get together.
They were really bad.
And when Sega of America was actually doing well in the marketplace, Sega of Japan didn't like that, because it wasn't their success. It was Sega of America. And honestly, Sega of Japan was the ones who told them they had to release the Sega Saturn at the E3 show, or that convention, when it was prematurely released.
Yeah.
And even the guy who was the president at the time, Tom Kalinske, he told him, "This is suicide. We can't do this. You can't, like, it's going to ruin Sega." And Sega Japan said, "Nope, you're going to make it available. You're going to do this because you're taking our instructions. Like, you have to follow this."
To be honest, I think that is one of those things where it's a very cultural thing, because Japanese companies will never allow themselves to be basically led by their American branches.
Or outshone by them.
If Nintendo of America were to suddenly become better than Nintendo of Japan, the same thing would happen, where Nintendo of Japan would basically say, "No, we're cutting everything with you guys now."
I don't know if
that's the case.
I feel like
though.
the mindset has shifted since that.
No, but got to remember, the CEOs are still of that age, and yeah, it's slowly shifting.
That's true, I suppose.
But the people running those companies still have that mentality. It's why Japanese game developers, when they go defunct, will not sell to American game developers.
And I suppose it's why we still don't get a lot of titles over here.
Yep, because there is still we are Japan. They're a very xenophobic country, even though, yes, it is shifting and it is getting better. They are still very bad about that.
Yeah, hence, well, America's not any
We're not any better, no,
considering how much we censor shit here, which for some reason, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Honestly, the need for censorship in video games anymore seems like such an outdated concept, considering what we have access to in the media anyway. So, like, I'll never understand that shit. Like, actually, the Final Fantasy VIII remake, or the remaster that they did. Did you... Oh, that's right, you haven't played it.
No.
They censored out part of Siren. The summon for Siren.
They covered her nips?
They covered her nips, and they covered her lower extremity. Yeah, her hoo-ha.
For Siren
woman
or
cave.
for Shiva?
For Siren.
Oh, okay.
She plays the harp, and she's you don't see anything anyway.
You just saw the green
I mean, it's not like they showed a straight-up fucking clam down there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for some reason, they felt the need to censor it. Like, what are you...
Yeah.
Why? This makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's fucking 2019. If she wants to show her clam, let her show her goddamn clam.
Goddamn clam!
I don't know. The only reason I haven't picked up the remaster of FF8 is because they left out a bunch of the stuff that the PC version got. So you remember how I was telling you about the remake, the remaster for Final Fantasy VII, where it's got like the triple speed, it's got the life and the limit gauge refill, it's got the no encounter, stuff like that. Well, there was stuff like that for FF8 on the PC version, where it would give you like all the cards, all the items, like cool like little cheats that you could just kind of play and do whatever you want. They cut all those from every version except for the PC.
I feel like that's a tiny qualm though.
Sorry, but being able to just start the beginning of the game and say, I have all magic and I don't have to draw, spend the first 6 hours drawing.
That to me that's kind of the point of the game. Like, that's just taking a whole system and being like, I'm a god now.
That's
That was
the point.
That was
I
kind of.
beat that game how long ago? I want to be able to dick around any way I want.
But now you can do it and you can see his face.
Yeah, I know that's
Instead of seeing that glob of fucking gunish that he's got for a face.
or if you play it on the PS2, like the thin PS2 where you see the animation squares.
Yeah. But that's kind of... I felt the same way about Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where everything was already unlocked on the PS3. And
Well, no,
rid of
but see,
that.
it's one of those things where I liked having... It was an option. It's not something you had to use.
I can see that.
Cutting options like that is dumb.
I don't know. I feel like putting options in is dumb.
No. Fuck you.
Let people play the game the way it's meant to be fucking
How
played.
old are those games at this point? If you haven't played it the way it's meant to be played, you weren't going to play it that way, period.
I don't like the temptation.
Fuck you. Just because you have a weak willpower.
I have a strong willpower.
Bullshit!
Goddammit.
So you're kind of hypocritical. What you just said is play the game the way it was meant to be played. So Marvel vs. Capcom 2, when it came out in arcades, everybody was unlocked. That was the way it was meant to be played.
That's an arcade game.
But we had more fun with the store. That was not the way it was meant to be played.
On the
that
PS2 it was.
That was an option added to help sell the game.
And that was not an option. We had to do the store.
We did. You fucker.
We had to do the store, and we liked it, damn it.
We did. I love the store.
No, we didn't.
I
Just
love-
put it in practice mode, leave it on overnight, have the maxed out points, and just buy everything anyways.
I told you guys about that, right? When I did that on...
I've done it before, too.
No.
Capcom versus SNK.
Capcom versus SNK, because... So, the wonderful thing about Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you got a lot of points. Like, when you beat the game on arcade mode...
You got like maybe a few hundred or a few thousand, right?
No, a few thousand. You got like 2,300, and it could be more than that, too. And the average thing, like, from the beginning, it was like 500 points, 600 points, and then it gradually goes up. Well, Capcom vs. SNK...
1 point.
They had the same thing. When you beat the game, you got like 400 points. It's like the highest you could get was 400 points. And when, like, things that you could buy in the store were like 3,000 points, 5,000 points. Why I wanted to get everything, I don't know. I was crazy. Maybe I was a little bit too gung ho on Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
You were stuck in that collector bubble.
I really was, actually. It got to a point to where, so you could do it. You could put it on training mode, and you could max out that thing to get 999 points. But the thing is every 10 minutes you would get, what is it, 100 points or something like that. So it was like 10 points a minute or whatever it broke down to. It was an hour and a half to get 999 points. And so therefore,
Have an alarm set.
I literally, I got so
Put it
good.
on, watch the movie.
I got so good at it that I would literally have that thing on overnight. I would wake up in the middle of the night, even with the TV off, I would know how to exit training mode, exit out, and then get back into training mode. I would turn on the TV just to make sure I was back in training mode, turned off the TV, went right back to bed. I did that thing for a couple weeks, and man, was I happy.
That is sad.
Wow. All right, maybe an option to unlock everything isn't such a bad idea.
At that point,
Turns
just
people
give me a
crazy.
fucking Game Shark
Turns people crazy, but
or
guess
a
what?
code breaker and just max out the points.
But guess what? Fucking hell, I got everything on that game.
Wow.
All of it unlocked.
That's fucking funny.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's
See, no, I
pretty
just
bad.
see like FF7. I like going back with games like that. I like having the option to cut out some of the tedium.
Yeah, I can see that.
And because like I said, I've played those games to death. I've been through FF7 and 8 more than a dozen times each, and I've used different combinations of parties, different stat setups. I just like being able to go in and just dick around however I want to go through the game. I mean, look at Tales of Vesperia. I've been through that game like 20 times.
Yeah.
And being able to take the grade system, that's what makes the Tales franchise so good.
Yeah.
I can take other items and stuff through another play. I can keep my level. I can level up faster.
Yeah, but those you earned. You had to earn grade points throughout the game and then beat it to attain the grade.
Fine, make it an unlockable after you beat the game.
See, I
would be cool with that. I miss cheats like that.
The one that didn't make sense to me about the FF8 is the no encounters. You can get no encounters in the game.
Well, the big thing like that, first off, you had
from Diablo.
You had Diablos.
He had a no encounter ability where you met no encounters.
First off,
why would you put that in the game?
Like,
as a cheat.
As in, like, you don't encounter anybody?
Well, bosses still.
Oh, just
but
bosses.
You would completely get rid of all random encounters.
FF8.
So basically, it's like the level 3 challenge of Super Mario.
No, it's a little bit
RPG.
different because in Final Fantasy VIII, when you're playing through the game and you level up, enemies scale with you.
Oh.
So if you beat the game at a low level using no encounter, it makes certain bosses much weaker.
Oh.
So, like, the whole point was there are speedruns where you get Diablos, get no encounter as quickly as possible, and speedrun the game.
Oh yeah, and then just speedrun. So you can still have fun with it. You can still make it a...
So
Because speedrunning's fun.
Well, it is to certain
It is
people.
fun!
It doesn't look fun.
To me,
I'm watching people speedrun shit and they're like, fuck!
Oh yeah.
1 pixel off!
Yeah, but then when it's a Streets 112, man...
Oh my god, I am fucking a legend. Holy shit, what an episode.
See, that's why I just like options. I miss when cheats were in games.
MRRL. Me and Mark Rutsu. Me and fucking Mark Rutsu.
And that's I agree. I like when the game presents you the cheat. Is it really a cheat then at that point? Because even Rainbow Islands told you how to get the world select.
Well,
At
but
the
see,
end, if you got the bad
that's
ending.
still it's a nice little touch. Or stuff like Konami Code, stuff like things like that. I miss when stuff was like that was in games.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing like that.
Oh, you
anymore.
can't anymore because putting codes in there or putting extra it's like I think we had a conversation not long ago about like hidden characters in games. Like that was a staple of like fighting games.
Yeah, now you pay $5.99.
Now exactly. I was like, I
Well,
can't.
and see, this is why like games like Borderlands, I think they do it right with the badass system and the new Guardian ranks, where I can keep playing even after I've maxed out my character to get those extra stat bonuses, to get more powerful, and to keep pushing stuff to get better loot.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny to say that because you were saying you pay for extra characters now. There are quite a few fighting games where it even tells you in the description of the purchase, this can be unlocked in game.
Oh,
There
so
are
can
some
it now?
fighting games. King of
Yeah,
Fighters did that, I think.
King of Fighters did it. So
Oh,
it's like
nice.
you could technically spend $3.99 to get this character, or you could just unlock it in game.
Oh, okay.
But so it's like, do I want it now or do I want to earn it?
See, I would-
fuck it. I got money to burn.
no. See, I would earn it because
No, see, if they're only unlockable by like paying, that's one thing. But if they're unlockable by earning them in game,
I would
I'd
earn
earn it in game.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that makes it feel like the old school stuff. Because
Absolutely.
I will never forget how like sad I was when I came to the realization. I'm like, man, extra like hidden fighters, like that was such a big thing. I loved looking at cheat guides and cheat codes and like the back of tips and tricks to find out like who could be unlocked.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
Or even
Nope.
inputting a sequence on the character select and it reveals a different character.
yeah.
Get
And it's
pop
like,
lips.
and now it's like
Drillard.
can't do that anymore because now every hidden character is like, nope, we can make money on that. So that's $2.99 a character. So it's like,
There's
well,
a character pack.
crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Where has time gone?
I don't know.
Sega, make a comeback.
We're waiting
Tell
for you,
me.
Sega.
You could even call it the Sega Ages.
I need
Which
a
would make
hero. I need a Sega right
Oh my
now.
god, could you imagine Sega makes a comeback at E3,
Kills
overtakes
I
Nintendo
would love it.
to become
I would love it.
Sega Tendo.
And their new mascot will be Sonic holding
They
Mario.
fuse together, and
Sorry.
we end up with a fleshy
Sega, no.
human Sonic, and that movie we got that's a reality now. 3D Mario is now 3D Sonic, and he looks like the guy in the movie.
To be honest, Mario already looks like that to me, so...
Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
No, because Sega does what Nintendo don't, so they can't ever work.
No, it's not
Shit.
gonna be Sega Tendo or whatever.
8-bit Bros community, whatever the fuck it's called now. What are they called now? When two dudes and the Genesis gems fused?
Bit Bros?
The Bit Bros. There you
Bit
go.
Bros?
There's a shout out to the Bit Bros.
Super
guys.
Yeah,
Super
but
Mega
that's
Bro
clever.
Bros?
Super Mega
yeah,
Bro Bros.
Yeah, 8-bit, yeah.
I think it's the 8-bit Brothers.
Or
or something
the
like that.
Bit Brothers or something like that. Bit Bros.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool guys, check them out on
Yes,
Facebook.
check them out.
Two dudes and an S on iTunes and Stitcher. Or not Stitcher, I'm sorry, just iTunes. What are they?
Where's Stitcher?
Where's Stitcher?
Man, I
Genesis gems, they're still a thing, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they still have their own thing.
I
Check
think
them
it's-
out too, they're
I
really
think it's-
good.
I think it's under Genesis Germs, though.
Nah, it's not germs. They just did an episode I saw of, they did Arcus Odyssey for the Genesis.
Oh, did
One
they
of the
really?
few instances where the Genesis version was superior to the Super Nintendo version.
They did
Yeah,
Arcus
because
Odyssey on the Super Nintendo.
In
too?
Japan only. It wasn't
Oh,
released
that's why. Well, I don't know if you could necessarily count that.
yet. No, but I actually did play the Super Nintendo version once on just
A ROM.
on a ROM for
Yeah.
funsies. Sounded better on the Genesis. That
There are
weird,
games-
that weird tinny Genesis.
I'm still a firm believer. Mega Turrican on the Sega Genesis, hands down, sounds so much better than the Super Nintendo version.
I believe.
Absolutely.
Musha, I feel like it had to be on the Genesis.
Yeah, I don't think they could have pulled it off on the Super Nintendo.
I don't think so either. I almost bought you. Speaking of that store that we were at in Beaver Dam, they had an Axlay. I almost bought you. Because didn't you say you wanted Axlay?
How much was it, though?
I don't know. I didn't see a price, and I ended up walking away.
That's usually a good time to walk away when there's no price stickers on something.
Well, the whole like they had a case, and a lot of it didn't have prices. They did have a Bucky O'Hare for only 90, which the game's worth 98. So I almost.
So I'm guessing Axlay was probably gonna. Yeah.
I think Axlay's only worth like 35 now.
It's actually not that expensive. I saw it, I think, at the Midwest Gaming Classic this year for like 50, and I was like, no, it's no.
Yeah.
$30 at most. Maybe I'll pay $40 for it, but I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know.
Well, what an episode this turned out to be. This actually panned
long
out.
one.
This panned out to be a longer one than I thought.
It did. But you seem like your rebuttal was much better this time.
Thank you.
You were actually paying attention this time.
He's still wrong, but I mean, no.
You weren't yawning. You tried to keep proving your point when it was already proven. When we
Well-
already agreed with it, but you kept trying to prove it anyways.
You know what they say: the best feeling in the world is proving somebody wrong. And I enjoy it, and I take every ounce of it I can get.
Too
All
bad
I
you've
can
never
say-
proven anyone wrong.
All I can say is that I may not be right,
But
but I'm never wrong.
You lame ass. Ah!
What's that shirt your mom bought me, say? No, you're wrong, so sit there in your wrongness.
I had sex with you last night.
There's a
Just kidding. Sorry.
Oh, you guys are gross. Banging my mom. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Power Trip Gaming Powercast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it.
Hopefully. So let us know what you guys think. Tell us what you think about the collecting landscape now. Tell us what you think about the
next
the
sort
crunch.
of collectible.
Next sort of collectible. I mean, everything that we talked about. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk about it on future episodes.
Absolutely. Do you think pop figures are going to transcend the next medium? Are we going to end up with digital pop figures? Oh, fuck! Holographic.
They already do
Well,
like
you see, I'd be
digital
okay with
action.
actual holographic base that just.
They already
different
do
pop
like
figures.
digital action figures in like video games that you can collect. I think that's the stupidest thing.
Oh, yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the only way I could see that being a thing would be like how the amiibos work, where it's you get a figure, but it also does something in a game.
Maybe. The only time
It's
that
actually kind of a clever system. I like the amiibo.
the only time that I
They're
liked
too easy to hack, though.
the only time I liked a digital action figure was in Resident Evil 5 because they made an Excella figure and you could rotate it any way that you wanted. Yeah.
You know, this is off topic,
What, like this?
but in
horrible-
Soul Calibur, right? You know how you could view things and you could rotate them and they would
Jiggle, jiggle,
jiggle. I won't lie.
Jiggle, 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 jiggle.
I've
Ivy.
released quite a few palm shots just rotating figures in Soul Calibur.
It was all Nightmare, by the way.
No, it was Ivy mostly. I had a thing
so
for Ivy. back in the day.
Ivy was
Taki, because you could see him through the suit.
Oh, tacky.
Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball.
You're the only person in the world who's played that.
Nuh-uh.
No, I'm
Game
not.
Grumps
No, I'm
did.
talking about actually played it.
Game Grumps did.
I feel like they played it ironically.
No, because you got to remember the breakdown Aaron had in it.
That was pretty
They
fucking
had to call
funny.
Susie in to get him.
But I feel like you're the only one who actually played it to play volleyball. You're
I
like,
did.
oh, the tits were secondary, but
I did.
that was pretty
I did.
cool.
I did enjoy it, but the volleyball was very fun to play too.
You're an idiot. But yes, let us know how you feel. Do you think Sega could possibly release a system and be successful?
I could see it.
I can see it.
I
too.
could totally see it happening.
I feel like Sega's pretty synonymous with the gaming landscape.
With the renaissance that retro gaming has had,
Like that
Sega.
word.
What's that?
You've said that word like 6 times.
Yeah, because
today.
that's what this really is.
Yeah, you're right.
It is.
I can't argue it.
So, but with that being said, like Sega, I think honestly right now they would be primed to come back and have it come back, like, people will go crazy over it.
Oh God, people would cream themselves.
Nah,
I
Crystal
don't know about that,
Dynamics.
though.
What's that?
Crystal Dynamics. Legacy Kane.
There you go.
Too bad Square owns all them now.
Summon a bitch. Well, anyway, that's it. Hit us up on Facebook.
Hit us up on Twitter.
Go to powertripgaming.tv. You can watch our YouTube videos where we're pounding through the NES collection.
And we are playing other games that we are playing on SideQuest.
Absolutely. I did it again.
Yes,
where
you
I
did.
just said absolutely and had no follow-up.
Nope, nothing whatsoever. What are you trying to say there, buddy?
I don't know.
Next time on Power Trip.
So catch all of our other episodes of the Power Trip
There
Gaming
you go.
Powercast on iTunes and Stitcher.
Both!
Whichever one you want. It doesn't have to be both, but if you want it to be both, why not?
Here comes trouble.
What?
Come on, man.
What is going on?
Are we gonna make it
What
double?
is going
We're
on?
make it double!
No, we're not.
Oh, fuck. iTunes and Stitcher. We're making it double. Do you not watch Pokemon?
Of
Come on,
course
man.
I do.
He jerked off to Jesse all the time.
No, I didn't.
You know...
No. Stop it. You're going to say about Nurse Joy. Come on, stop
I
it.
was a Misty guy, personally. Thank you very much.
No.
All right, guys. Sorry we had to put that image in your head.
Yeah, that was it. That's the Power Trip Gaming Powercast!
I was an Officer Jenny guy.
Of course you were. You were an Ash guy.
Jinx.
Nah, you're listening with power! Top notch.